beginning. Welcome to the third and final webinar. Today, I am going to undertake a task of extreme stupidity. I'm going to try to attempt to critique 17 pieces of copy. We just got buried. I mean, we got so many submissions, we got buried. See what I'm doing there? I'm using a metaphor. I'm speaking in word pictures. So I wish I could critique everybody, but I can't. I'm going to do what I call lightning rounds, really quickie critiques of a whole bunch of you where I'm keying in on a key thing. And then towards the end, there are going to be some pieces of copy where we go a little more deep. So some of the critiques will be macro critiques, some will be micro, and some will be just kind of almost like a full-blown critique where you do macro and micro and all that. We're going to start with really basic stuff. The submissions, the skill level and experience level was all over the map. We had people who were newbies, brand spanking new. We have people who were pros, who are killers, who are assassins, and then we have everything in between. We're going to start with the most basic stuff with the newbies, and we'll progress to more advanced stuff as we go on. So, but before we do any of that, I had gotten some questions this week, like about, you know, I'm teaching you guys mostly about how to be a better copywriter, but some people were asking about how do you develop your career and all that kind of stuff. And what I would advise you to do is watch video number 3, how I doubled my income every year, that video. And also, I'm a big fan of Copy Chief. So I think if you're not a member of the Copy Chief community, you should consider joining Copy Chief in general. And in particular, there's a program Kevin has called, what is it? Real Free Life. And a bunch of my Cubs have been members of that. Call out your name if you were a member of Real Free Life.
Melanie.
Melanie.
April.
Pauline. Russ, who had a sex change. Can you guys see that Russ had a sex change? Russ is sick with the flu.
Oh.
So Nicole has kindly agreed to take over the helm here. Nicole was in Real Free Life, and I think Russ was too. And did you guys find it valuable?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
For sure.
Okay, so something to check out. How do they get there, you guys? Please, not all at once. If anybody on the call has a link, type it in the chat box. And having addressed that, we're going to start today's session. Nicole, can you please open the document?
Yes, I just want to remind everybody here.
The ground rules, please do. And that'll give me a chance to finish my bulletproof bar while you tell everybody the ground rules.
Okay. All right. So just like the last 2 calls, you're all in listen only mode. We're only using the Q&A box for questions. So if you're writing things in the chat, if it's a question, it might not get answered. And this call is being recorded, and we will send you a link to the recording in a couple of days. All right. So you ready, Parris?
Yes, Parris, who's talking with food in his mouth.
All right.
Please show the top mistakes slide.
Okay. Is that big enough?
Maybe make it a little bigger.
175. Oh, I guess I can't choose that.
Can people see this? Type in the chat box. Type in the chat box only if you are having trouble seeing it.
All right, looks like we're okay.
Okay. So what I'm going to do here is I am going to prime you. Priming is when you plant a seed in someone's head so that everything you tell them afterwards takes on a whole new meaning. So an example of priming would be if I started talking about big numbers like, you know, tens of thousands of dollars and hundreds of thousands of dollars just in the conversation. And what I'm doing is I'm anchoring you to a higher number so that later on when I tell you that my thing is only $500, you're like, oh, it's a bargain because you've been primed. Okay? Today I'm priming you in a different way. I'm going to share with you what 17 of the top copywriting mistakes are. And this way I've planted a seed. And then when we show you the different examples of the copy, you'll see these mistakes being, done. You'll see it in action. So mistake number one, this is hugely important because if you get this wrong, you're going to get everything else wrong. Mistake number one is not knowing your audience or having only a superficial understanding of your audience. And if you make this mistake, it's going to lead to all kinds of other mistakes. Mistakes numbers 2 through 6 and mistake 8 and mistake 9 on this list. So very important that you understand your audience and you do the research. Okay? Now, number 2, offering a benefit that the reader doesn't care about. Yes, I've seen that happen. Remember Robert Collier's advice to enter the conversation the reader is having in their mind. Talk about a benefit that's relevant to them. Number 3, using a metaphor that the reader doesn't understand or relate to. We'll see an example of that today. Number 4, fake empathy copy. We'll see examples of that. When I was a young copywriter, I wrote this piece and it did pretty well. And it was pretty standard. It was like, if you're having trouble with this, then read this. And then it went right into the pitch and the benefits and all, the stuff we usually do. And it did well. And then I went to a seminar, and in the seminar, the speaker was saying, you have to have empathy for your reader. You can make your response go through the roof if you show empathy in your copy. And I said, cool, I'm going to do that. So I wrote a big empathy section, and we put that in the copy, and we tested it, and guess what happened? We suppressed response. Response went down. And the reason was because I hadn't nailed it. When you use empathy copy, you've got to nail it. You've got to hit the bullseye. If you're off by a little bit even, they're going to recognize that you're not really one of them, that you're just pretending to be one of them, and it's going to hurt your response. And so what I liken this to is like the guy, you go to a seminar and they say, use empathy, use problem, agitate, solution, really agitate them. And yes, you should do those things, but doing those things requires a high level of skill. So if you do not have a high level of skill and you attempt to do those things, you're like the guy who goes and takes 2 karate lessons and then walks into a biker bar and gets his ass kicked, okay? You do not want to be that guy. So that's number 4, fake empathy copy. Number 5, copy that is insulting to the reader. You don't want to insult people. They're just going to tune you out. They're going to toss you in the garbage. Number 6, indiscriminate swiping or misapplying a formula. We talked about this, right? The amazing secret of a one-legged accountant. That is misapplying a formula. You will see another example of misapplying a formula today. Generic, undifferentiated headlines. You are not the first person in most cases to promise a benefit here. So you have to stand out. You have to be unique. You have to be different. We'll see examples of undifferentiated headlines. Number 9, burying the lead. Usually I'll see copy. It'll have a generic Me Too, undifferentiated headline. And then somewhere buried on page 4 or 5 somewhere, there'll be something new and different and exciting. And I'll say, geez, why didn't you just lead with that? That's your lead over there. We'll see examples of that today. Number 9, talking about yourself instead of talking about the reader. Remember, it's about them, not you. Do you guys know what everybody's favorite radio station is? Type it in the chat box if you know the answer. What is everybody's famous radio favorite? That's right. Christina said it. Judy, Maurice, WIIFM, which stands for What's in It for Me. They don't care about you, they care about them. Number 11, focusing on features instead of benefits is very basic, but yep, we got examples of people who focused on features instead of benefits. Number 12, unbelievable claims or claims without proof. Talked about that in the past. You'll see some of that going on today. Number 13, flawed logic or contradictions and inconsistencies. Once you do that, you're dead. People say, 2 seconds ago, you were saying X. Now you're saying the opposite of X. I don't believe anything you're saying. I'm done with you. And then number 14, being cute or clever. We've got some of that we're going to see today. Number 15, telling rather than showing. We talked about that, and we'll see some of that today. And it says here, a tip-off that you're telling rather than showing is that you are using too many adjectives and adverbs in your copy. I see a lot of that. You're trying to make up for the fact that you have nothing of substance by using adjectives. After I said last week that, you know, when you add an adjective and you put an exclamation point, it grasps the advantage. As soon as I said it, I said, oh my God, I know what's going to happen now. We're going to get this like epidemic of people just loading copy out with adjectives. No, be very, very, very judicious in your use of adjectives and adverbs, okay? Think of them as a spice. Think of them like salt and pepper. You don't want to dredge your food with salt and pepper. You want to put just a little bit, okay? You just want to put a little bit of herbs and spices. That's what adjectives are. Use them very sparingly. Another telltale sign that you're telling rather than showing is when you're speaking in abstractions instead of actions. Number 16, bad writing. That is writing that bores the reader or writing that confuses the reader. We're going to see that, and I'm going to give you some remedies for how to fix that. And number 17, no call to action. Believe it or not, some people have copy without a call to action, or a weak call to action, or a premature calling to action where you're asking for the sale before you've convinced them or sold them on it. Okay? So those are the 17 mistakes. There's a lot more, but I think we'll start with 17. I think that's plenty. Why don't we go to the first piece of copy, Nicole, AKA Russ Reynolds.
All right. Is this big enough for
Okay.
everybody?
So like I told you, we're starting really basic. Maurice, this is not Maurice. This is Alex Goldstein. Alex, you are in the real estate business, yes?
Okay, hang on a sec. I've got to promote him.
I'm going to set timers for each of these because we can only spend about 5 minutes on each one. Otherwise, we'll be here till next week.
I'm not sure Alex is on. Give me a sec.
Okay, well, we will pretend he's here.
Okay.
Alex, you're in the real estate business. What's that?
Nothing. I was just
that was
filling
Pauline.
in for Alex.
Alex came on. All right, so this is a squeeze page. Oops, it's gone now.
Squeezed it too hard.
Okay, and the problem is you are not giving the person any benefit whatsoever for signing up on your list. Okay, Alex told me that this isn't doing very well, and we can see why. You are not providing a benefit to the people. All you're providing them is with another problem, another piece of thing that's going to come into their life every day, right? Who here, call out your name if you feel like you don't subscribe to enough emails and you'd like to subscribe to how much more? Call out your name. Nobody, right? No, yeah, oh, please me, somebody says. There's always a wiseacre in the group, right? So you have to give them a benefit. Up here, it says unlisted off-market homes. These are features, not benefits. What is the benefit of subscribing? I would write like 5 really sexy bullets of what they're going to get in return for giving you their email address. Their email address is a very valuable commodity, and they guard it and they cherish it, and they're not just going to give it to everybody. If you're like the prettiest girl at the bar, you're not going to give your phone number to every dude who walks up to you. He's got to bring something to the table. So you've got to bring something to the table, Alex. Figure out what it is. What do they want the most? That's what you promise them. You'll get a lot more signups. Next one, please. This is Maurice Ford. He is in the window business. And he too is saying he's not getting a whole lot of action from this brochure. Maurice, are you on the call? Yes, he's here. Okay. again, you're not really giving them a benefit. The only benefit you're giving them is the price break. Why does it say $50 off? My version says $500 off. Whatever it is, 50 or 500, I'm going to assume it's 500. That's all well and good, but people only care about getting a good deal if it's something that they're actually interested in, right? If you came up to me and said, Parris, I'm going to give you the best deal you've ever seen on knitting needles and yarn, I don't care what the damn deal is. I'm not interested in knitting, so it's meaningless to me. If you're telling me that you're going to give me $500 off of Windows, well, how do I know you're any good at what you do? How do I know you're not going to do a crappy job and the next time it rains, water's going to come in to my house and destroy my house and make everything moldy? Okay? There's a lot of incompetent contractors out there. Now, it says stuff on here like in business since 1985, blah, 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 blah. Those are all features, okay? What you really want to do, and by the way, the picture, it's an ugly picture. It looks like a freaking housing project. It looks like Soviet Union architecture, okay? Have a nice, if you're going to have a picture, have a nice picture. The best way to do this type of thing is to have a lead magnet of some sort. So if you look at Joe Polish, he used to have the, what was it thing? The scams that carpet clean, top 10 scams that carpet cleaners use. It was a consumer guide to carpet cleaning. And it had all these things, 5 questions you should ask a carpet cleaner and all that. That's what you want to do. Have that, people send away for that. And by doing that, number one, you stand out from the pack because you demonstrate, remember, demonstration proof is the strongest proof. You demonstrate that you know what you're talking about. Number two, there's reciprocity because you gave them something and now they're going to give you something in return. Number three, they come to you pre-educated and pre-qualified because you've educated them. And so now when they call you up, see, when somebody doesn't know anything, like if I don't know anything about roofers or contractors or window people and I call one, what's the first thing I'm going to ask them on the phone? Paul, what's the first thing I'm going to ask them?
If you don't know anything at all?
Yeah.
I mean, if I didn't know anything at all, it's my house. I'd basically ask, like, look, how are you going to help me with my home?
You
Like,
forget it. You're the wrong guy. You're too smart. Most people say, how much does it cost? Because they don't know what else to ask. And so right now you've gotten in the business of competing on price, which you never want to be. You don't want to compete on price, okay? So have something that's benefit oriented or educational, and then use that. And don't, brochures suck. I want everybody on the call to write brochures suck. You'll get much better action with a letter or a special report or some kind of lead magnet, a tip sheet or something like that. Okay. Let's go to the next person. Scott Creed. Drew, what do you think this is? Whoa, keep going back. Whoa, smaller, smaller, smaller. Keep going. Let's see the top.
Is that good?
Keep going. You're not showing me the top of the thing, the headline. Oh. Okay. Drew, what is this? Become an all-star ambassador. Drew, you interested?
No, I can't say I am.
Why not? Don't you want to be an all-star ambassador?
Maybe. There's probably other things I could do better with my life that day.
Do you even know what this is or what it means?
I have no idea. I'm lost.
No idea. You see that, Scott? Somebody who gets this has no idea what you're offering. Okay? What Scott is offering is this. You know how when you raise funds for your kids' school, like for the sports teams or the science lab or whatever it is, and the kids are selling candy bars door to door or caramel popcorn or that kind of stuff. You know what I'm talking about?
Mm-hmm.
Well, that's what Scott's doing here, but he's selling coffee. So he says, why should they, instead of selling that crap, they could sell something that people use every day. We have a very wonderful premium coffee, okay? So I have no idea what that is. I have no idea that that's what this is. I'd have to read really deeply to realize what it's talking about. So you want to have a headline that tells what it is and tells what the benefit is. So the headline, this is just off the top of my head. It's not the greatest headline by any means, but you know, it would be something about raising money for your kids' sports team without having to sell crap like candy bars and popcorn, right? So it would be something of that nature, or it could be something else. You want to find out what's the biggest hot button for your audience, and that's what you focus on, okay? And the other thing about this is he's saying something about the parents who do this can earn money and make commissions. So, and the problem with that is if their number one target, if their number one hot button of your audience is that they want to raise money for their kids, and you start talking about earning commissions, it's going to make them feel like they're shills, right? You got to be very careful about doing something like that, right? So, you know, all-star ambassador means nothing to me. You got to have a benefit. Don't make them feel like they're shills, like they're in it for the money. Unless that is, if you found out that that was the number one hot button, then you focus on that. But whatever it is, focus on whatever it is. Okay, Scott? Now, there's other issues that are marketing issues, like is this the best approach to begin with, or should you be getting to people in another way? And I'm not going to focus on that today because we don't have a lot of time. And Scott, you bought you were one of the people who bought the 2 hours with Jay Abraham. So Jay's like the greatest marketing mind on the planet. So he can help you with strategy and all that kind of stuff. I was just telling you about copy. Probably what you'll want to do is hire a copywriter to write your stuff for you. There's probably people on this call who'd be interested. So, you know, reach out. Whoever's interested in writing for Scott, send me an email. And Scott, if you're interested in hiring a writer, I'll connect you guys. Okay, next one.
Okay.
Oh, by the way, this was Scott's, the one right next to it, Nicole, that was what Scott's full color looked like. And then he changed, he said, I improved the copy, and you did improve the copy, but only improved it a little bit. There's a lot of stuff you're still doing wrong. So scroll down here. See, go to that. Here, this section, you'll make money, you'll enjoy being involved. Now, this is finally on page 2, you're talking about benefits, right? You should have talked about benefits on page 1. But again, don't make it, I don't think you want to make it about the money here. Research your audience, but my suspicion is you don't want to make it about the money. Okay, next one.
All right.
Okay, this is Michelle Chavola, I believe. Is that how you pronounce your name, Michelle? Yes. This is a letter that Michelle wrote for a local business. And this is what I call good enough copy. In other words, you don't have to be Gary Benzavenga or Clayton Makepeace to write for these local businesses. You can be a relative newbie and do a good job for them. And Michelle did a good job. She told me, I forget how many appointments she told me she got from this letter, but it was a success, okay? So that's terrific. I'm gonna teach you how to make it even better, because when you deal with these mom and pop businesses and so forth, it's fine, but you're not gonna get rich, you know, writing for these type of clients. You're gonna get rich writing for the big, you know, $100 million companies like Agora, or Agora is $1 billion company, okay? So in the video number 3, where I talk about how I doubled my income every year, I talk about how you start with a certain level of client and then you just keep getting higher and higher paying gigs. And so this copy is good enough for what it is, but it wouldn't be good enough for like an acquisition mailing for like a big mailer, okay? So this went to the house list, right? It was people who already know and love the person who it was coming from, in this case, a dentist, a local dentist. So one of the crude things I like to say to make the point is, if you're mailing to a group of people who know and love you, you can wipe your ass on a piece of paper and mail it to them, and some people will send you money. Okay, now I'm not saying what this is because this has a lot of good stuff about it, but let me show you how it can improve, okay? Go to the second paragraph, the one in italics. But ultimately, the face is the frame of a beautiful smile. And even though a person's smile may be stunning, her face can tell a different story. It's a little bit clunky, right? It could use a better transition. And also, you changed subjects from sentence to sentence. I haven't talked about this yet, but if you find that copy is a little clunky and you can't figure out why, look at who the subject is, the doer of the action, the subject in the grammatical sense. In the first sentence, face is the subject. In the second sentence, a person is the subject. When you switch subjects on people, you disorient them. You got to remember, they're not in your head. They don't know what you're thinking. You have to make everything crystal clear, not just so you think it's clear, but to make it impossible to misunderstand. And you got to make it smooth as silk. Okay. This isn't a horrible paragraph. But if you have enough of these paragraphs like that, the cumulative effect is that you start losing people and they stop reading because it's just too much work. Okay. If you look at the next paragraph, same thing. As women age, our mouths start to turn down, which unfortunately can make us look angry, tired, or sad. Okay. Fine lines on our forehead, around the eyes, and surrounding mouth can add unnecessary years to our faces. So in the first sentence, we're the subject. In the second sentence, fine lines became the subject. Which is a better subject? An actual person who can actually do something, or a fine line, which is like, right? You want to, ideally, you want a subject that's a doer. You want a person, you want an animal. Like the worst kind of sentences are the ones where it says, being in copywriting class is a great way, right? Because being is now a subject. You can't picture being. It's a gerund, it's a verb, right? You want a person to be a subject, if at all possible. Go to the top of the next page. It says, it's a fact. Botox has gotten a bad rap. No, that's not a fact. That's an opinion. Okay, so don't call it a fact. And then the next paragraph, 2 paragraphs down, contrary to both popular belief, Botox is not a poison, but a protein-created bacteria, okay? There are no live bacteria in Botox. Here's what some of the world's most beautiful women, it's like there's no transition there, it's abrupt. You went from talking about Botox to here's what some of the most beautiful women. And then you say in the next sentence, use sparingly, Botox can safely deliver blah, 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 but then there's no proof. Anytime you make a claim, you have to prove it, okay? And then in the next sentence, you're changing subjects again from sentence to sentence. And then scroll down to where it says, why a dentist is your best option for Botox treatments, okay? And I'm like, a dentist offering Botox? No thanks, right? I mean, frankly, a dentist offering Botox, to me, it sounds like nothing more than a cash grab. Oh, this guy wants to make more money, so he's just going to start offering Botox. I don't want some freaking dentist injecting me. Now, in the next sentence or paragraph, to your credit, you do give a proof element for why a dentist is good. But the problem is it may be too late at that point. They may have bailed on you, right? Now, in this case, it was coming from a dentist they know and trust, so it was fine. But if you were going to a cold list, you would have had a lot of people bailing on you. So you want, before you make something like that, you want to lay the groundwork, right? You want to say, instead of why a dentist is your best option, you may have said something like, why, who did you say? Why facial, who is it? Or other healthcare professionals, whatever they are, whoever these other healthcare professionals are who give Botox treatments. A better subhead or crosshead there would have been why these type of people are not the right people to go to, okay? So now the person's looking at them, they go, huh, why would that be? Now they're curious. Now you tell them, look, it sounds like, you know, that's for most people who do it. But wouldn't it make sense to have someone who has studied the face and the jaw and the this and the that? They spent their whole year studying that. Wouldn't it make sense to go to one of those folks instead? Well, guess who has the most experience and knowledge on that? Dentists. Boom. Now you've got me sold. Okay. Let's move on to the next one. Osmund. I don't know how you pronounce your name. Osmund, Ringingen. I think you're Norwegian or something, maybe. This is an example of not understanding your audience. Paul, read that headline for us.
Grandpa, why aren't you already rich? Where's your dough?
What would you think if you got that in the mail, Paul?
I mean, I'm going to be just really brutally honest. I'd pitch it straight away because I can't imagine a kid ever thinking that or saying that. So it just seems, it rings false straight out the gate.
It rings false and it's insulting. So they're going to toss this in the garbage as soon as they get it. Now, it talks about you said that this is going out to investors between the age of 40 to 70 who are intermediate skill level. It's talking to them like they're beginners. It's talking to them like they're idiots. It's insulting them. You're trying to do agitation copy, but you're doing it in a way that's insulting, and it's not going to win you any friends. Okay? If you look at my reading list on video 3, what's one of the first books I made you copy cubs read? How to Win Friends and Influence People, right? It's like one of the first books we read before we had any books about copy, okay? Very important. You don't want to piss people off. Can you scroll down, please, Nicole?
When?
Keep going to page 3, 4. I guess there's a link. Click that hyperlink. Takes them to a home page. Never, ever, ever, ever have a sales page that takes somebody to a home page. If it's a traffic driver, take them to a sales letter. If it's a sales letter, a long form email, take them to the order form. Never, ever take people to a home page. Now, X out of there, please, Nicole, and get back to the letter. He does this weird stuff where he says, you should have, you would have. Again, you're just making them upset. And go up, back up there where we just were. Scroll back up, right there, right above the link. It says, for more information, you should have gone to. Well, what does that could tell me where I should go to now, not where I should have gone to. Okay, now scroll down past this. He uses a metaphor, the case against female friends and how you can build a real estate empire. What? Does that make any sense to you, Drew?
Not at all.
I think what you were trying to do here is, Asmund, is you were trying to be, I hope I'm pronouncing your name correctly. If I'm not, I apologize. I think what you were trying to do is say something intriguing and curiosity provoking and all that, but it's not. It's just confusing. Okay? And what it talks about, it says about going after the 9s and 10s and not having one-itis. If you guys ever read any of the guys who sell how to pick up chicks stuff, you know, there's a big market of people who sell that. They have this thing called one-itis, which means don't get so attached to one girl because, you know, it's a recipe for heartbreak. Instead, be out there and have a big, it's like a marketing funnel. Date a lot of women and then until you find the right one, right? Anyway, the point is this metaphor is totally wrong for the audience. This is dudes between 40 and 70 years old. They're not up on the PUA stuff. PUA, pickup artist. That's the lingo. It's just the wrong metaphor. You're making that mistake I made earlier about metaphors that are foreign to them or they don't understand. Okay. So my advice to you is take this, burn it, start from scratch. Learn your audience and understand them intimately and know what their real fears are. Don't just make up shit like, because this is fake empathy copy and it's badly executed agitation copy because you're not understanding the people you're writing to. Okay, next, please. Okay, whoops, wrong one. Scroll down, please. Go. That's wrong. X out of it. X out of it. X out of it. I guess I'm going to have to email you the, that was the one with all my comments in it. I'm going to have to email you the actual thing. So give me 1 second, you guys. Nicole. Insert, attach file.
Of course, this is going to get tricky now for me to get this in here.
All right. Here's what we're going to do. Stop sharing your screen for a second. Okay. And what I want you to do, Nicole, is delete all those yellow highlighted comments from the top. And now your page should start with the subject line and the rest of the copy should not have yellow comments for me. It wouldn't be a Parris call if we didn't have snafus.
All right, so starting with subject line. Yes?
Laden just said he wants to see the comments. You're going to hear my comments, okay?
Parris, so it starts with subject line, right?
Okay, now show that.
Okay.
And the comments, the way I wrote them, they're not necessarily clear, Mladen. They're like shorthand. They're stuff for me, and it's not necessarily going to make sense to you. Okay, is it big? I have to make my screen big now. How did I
can make it bigger.
Can people see this? If you can't see it, send a text, a chat. Okay, it looks like people could see it. Oh, can't see. All right, make it a little bigger. Okay, like Bruce Ace 108 comeback techniques. I had no freaking idea what that meant. And a couple of you, because I shared some of these with the Cubs. I divvied them out to, get their thoughts on them. And this is what I got back. I had to read that subject line like 3 times to understand what the heck it meant. Okay, because it's out of context. You thought it was clear to you because it was in your brain, but we're not in your brain. We don't know what you're thinking. Okay. Like Bruce, what does that mean? Bruce Springsteen? Well, no, it turns out she's talking about Bruce Lee. This is Lee Norse, by the way. Lee, you were talking about Bruce Lee, okay? And yeah, people love Bruce Lee, but it's just kind of out of left field. They're not necessarily going to know what you're talking about, okay? And this is another example of not really understanding your audience, or in your case, I would say having a superficial understanding of your audience, okay? So it goes, dear so-and-so, I fear not the man who practiced the 10,000. Don't start with a quote. This is not like a junior high school paper, okay? Get to the benefit. Now it says, it's rush hour, you're driving home thinking of how to practice like Bruce Lee. No, I'm not. Nobody's driving home thinking how to practice Bruce Lee. There's a few people in our group who are actually martial artists, and they will all tell you, no, I'm not thinking about Bruce Lee when I'm driving home. So right off the bat, you've said something that doesn't ring true. It's fake empathy copy. How do you squeeze training into the end of your workday? You want to learn 108 combat techniques in your spare time, but spare time, priorities, you keep them straight. So we have all this kind of fractured syntax here. It's kind of weird, clunky writing, okay? It's not the way you normally talk. You want to learn all the combat techniques, but family work, you'd need to invest serious time, okay? When you make an absolute statement like that, you this, you that, if it's not 100% true for everybody reason, you're gonna risk losing people. It's better to say stuff like, if you're like me, you wanna get better at this, maybe you're this, maybe you're that, maybe you're that. Now you've said stuff that nobody can disagree with. Because number one, you said, if you're like me. Number two, you said maybe, okay? When you just go out with a blanket statement, you this, you that, you that, you that, if it's not 100% true about everybody in your audience, you're gonna lose people. But the other thing here is, let me read it some more. You'd need to invest serious time to learn 108 combat techniques to diamond perfection at the Kwun. Sure, if you go there, you can drill with other students and talk with Sifu. You'd benefit from his insight. But all things have their yin and yang, right? No, you're not going to fool me that you're one of me just by throwing the buzzwords and the jargon at me, okay? I can tell who's one of me and who's not and who's just a poser. This is like keyword stuffing. You guys remember keyword stuffing in the early days of the internet? Oh, we're going to rank highly in the search engines. We're just going to throw the keyword, like every third word is going to be a keyword. That's what this is like. It's unnatural. It doesn't ring true. It feels fake. It's not going to make me buy. Now scroll down to the bottom. You spend all this time on the fake empathy copy. And then finally at the bottom, you tell me that you're selling a Wing Chun dummy, right? These dummies that you can practice on, you kick them and you punch them and all that. And then you ask for the order. You don't tell them anything about why I would want this Wing Chun dummy, why it's better than un-Wing Chun dummies, why it's constructed better, why it'll last longer, any of that stuff. You just go, you asked for the order too soon. Okay, so I hope that's helpful. Next one. How are we doing on time, by the way? 2:45, okay.
So it's number 7, right?
Mhm. Okay. Give me 7 days and I'll show you the cheapest, fastest, and easiest way to get unlimited customers from Facebook. Guaranteed. So you are making a few mistakes here. Number 1, you are misapplying a formula. Number 2, you are tipping off right away that you're selling something. Okay? Hi, Pauline. You raised your hand there. Hey, Pauline, do you like salesmen? When a salesman comes to your door, what do?
I pretend I'm not home.
You pretend like you're home. What about you, Paul? When a salesman comes by, what do?
Yeah, about the same. Either bust their balls or pretend I'm not home.
Okay. So why on earth would you tip off right off the bat that you're selling something? There's only 2 times you should ever tip off that you're selling something. Number 1, when you are a recognized brand that somebody already knows and loves and desperately wants. Then you can tip it off. Then you could say in your headline, new iPhone X, whatever the price is, right? Or whatever it is. Then you could do it. The other time you can do it is when you are offering somebody a benefit that they really want and you're the first one ever to offer that benefit. Okay? So what you did here, this is Gary Ong here. Gary, what you did here is you swiped Clayton's old headline from Health and Healing newsletter from 1990, whatever that was, 1991 to whatever the hell it was when they launched Health and Healing. And it said, give me 7 days and he starts talking about all the ways he's going to change your health naturally. Okay? Clayton could do that because he was the first one ever. He was the first alternative health newsletter ever. So he could just come up and be very direct. Okay? You cannot. You are not the only one out there who is promising people how to advertise on Facebook. You are one of like probably 8 gazillion people you're competing against. So why do that? Right? You got to stand out from the crowd. You got to stand out from the clutter. You got to offer them a benefit. You got to do it in a way that's fresh and new and different. And you don't tell them don't tip off that you're selling something. Okay? By the way, scroll down to a little bit, Nicole, stop. I'm going to show you my personal roadmap to Facebook. It's my Facebook marketing launch plan. You see where they are, right where Nicole's cursor is? An actual roadmap. It's not an actual roadmap. It's not a piece of paper that has roads and streets on it, okay? It's a metaphoric roadmap. It's not an actual roadmap. That's one of my pet peeves when people do that, or when people say literally and they don't mean literally, they say figuratively and they say literally. Drives me up the fucking wall. Keep going down. Are you left behind? Yes, that's a good thing to key in on, because the fear of being left behind is the #1 hot button in any B2B scenario. However, I wouldn't be so overt with it. I would show rather than tell. And I'm not sure if this copy that you have here mirrors what they're feeling. Again, if you're going to use empathy copy, it's got to be dead on. It's got to be exactly what they're going through. And then, there's some other stuff that doesn't ring true here. Like when you say how you learned it, you said, where is it? It said, what you're doing is wrong. And then, so here's what I did instead. Find that section. Here's what I did instead.
There
There it is.
Oh, no, here it is. Here's what I did instead. I decided I would learn from the ground up, from the people who were spending thousands of dollars and making millions more. I spent 2 years in one of the biggest marketing agencies learning from the big boys. This is all good stuff, but it doesn't ring true. You didn't learn it from the ground. You didn't decide consciously, I'm going to learn it from the ground up so I win it. No, you had a job somewhere, it sounds like. So don't try to bullshit me and tell me it's something you're not. There's nothing wrong with starting out having a job somewhere. at a big agency. You learned a lot of experience. So I did that. And then I quit the agency and I went here and I learned that. And then just be honest. Okay, that's it for that one. People can sniff bullshit a mile away. All right.
Let me make this a little bigger.
Okay, this is John Bajakovic. Did I pronounce your name right? Okay. John, are you the first person ever on the planet to sell a probiotic supplement? No, you are not. Okay, so why would you come out and say announcing this? And first of all, you're tipping off that you're selling something, right?
Sorry. Don't know why I did that.
We never tip off that we're selling something unless A, we are the first person ever to offer that benefit, or B, we are a brand name that people already know and love. Okay? So you're just, and this is an undifferentiated claim. You're making the same claim that everybody else that's selling probiotics is. Now, I notice that I believe this is going to the House list, in which case it's not the end of the world. It's not the most horrible mistake you can make, because they're going to, a lot of people, percentage of people are going to buy from you just because, oh, it's Steve's selling me a probiotic. Cool. I'd rather buy Steve's probiotics than some other dude's probiotic because I know and love and trust Steve. But even then, you could do a lot better if you just have real, powerful, benefit-driven copy that is different and unique. Okay, that's what we call a hook, right? You need a hook. You don't have a hook. You're just making the same generic claim that everybody else who sells probiotics is making. By the way, the body copy is good. You did a pretty good job here, but the headline and lead, you need something stronger. Next one. Our good friend, Abby Woodcock. Scroll up to the top, please. Make it bigger. Abby, are you there? Is Abby there?
Yep, she's here.
What am I going to tell you is wrong with this, Abby?
Abby has to do her own
The
critique.
headline is terrible. Yes, we love you. Rachel is right. We do love you. And yes, Abby, you're right. The headline is terrible. You're tipping off that you're selling something. You're talking about you instead of the prospect, right? You got the brand name in the headline. When do we put the brand name in the headline? The only time we ever put the brand name in the headline is if it's stage 1 or stage 2 awareness. So when it's Apple, that's right. When it's an iPhone, okay? This may be stage 2 to some people, but there's still a lot of people who haven't heard of Kajabi. So I wouldn't put their name in there. And it's a cute and clever headline. It's like something Madison Avenue would do. With an unlimited budget and your own world-class team of designers, developers, and marketers, what would you build? We bet it would look like Kajabi. Okay, so you know who's going to love this headline? Your client, Kajabi, is going to love the headline, but the prospects are going to toss it in the trash. Okay, now look underneath. Build, deliver, market, and sell with no coding, no hiring, no learning curve, no downtime, no plugins, no broken integrations. Just a beautiful professional online business built with just a few clicks, all in one place. Boom, that's your headline, not the one you had. So delete the headline, use your existing subhead as a headline, and maybe tweak it a little bit, because I think you can make it a little leaner. You could trim some fat there, but it's a good headline otherwise. And your body copy is good, which, you know, it's not surprising. Abby's a pro. So thank you, Abby. Let's move on to the next one. Rebecca Chalkley. Okay, let's scroll up. She's got, she's selling this leadership training, and the people who it's going to are people who are listeners to the dude's podcast. And this is the first time he's ever selling them something. So I want to caution you, Rebecca, that it may be a losing battle. Depending on how long they've been in this orbit with him never selling them anything ever, he may have trained them to not be buyers. He may have trained them that I'm here to give you all the free shit you want and never ask for money from you. So, you know, that could happen. And if that happens, it could or could not have anything to do with your copy. But let's look at your copy and see what's wrong with it. What could be better with it? Be a legendary leader. Look at the hub subject lines up top. Scroll up to the top, Nicole. We have all these different headline options. And number one, if you have that many headline options and you can't decide which one's the best, it means that none of them are good enough. Because if you have a really great headline, it'll jump out at you. You'll know. You'll say, oh my God. It'll make you tingle, as Clayton says. It'll make you vibrate, as Marty Eggleston used to say. None of these headlines are doing it. So what's wrong with them? Let's look at them. Be a legendary leader even if you have imposter syndrome. Dramatically improve your leadership ability. Up-level your leadership game. Leave your indelible mark through world-class leadership. Okay? What do those all have in common? Drew, what's she doing there?
They're abstractions.
That's right.
Yeah, it's very vague.
You are speaking in abstractions instead of actions. If I were watching a movie of effective leadership, what would I be seeing? Okay? That you answer that question, and then you'll be able to write better headlines. Now let's scroll down a little bit. Look for, okay. What's inside the Leader Academy?
Is that a crosshead, Parris?
Yes.
Did I go too far? Oh, here we go.
There we go.
Okay, in week one, we'll cover the fundamental elements of effective leadership. Week two, you'll cultivate your personal excellence. More of the same. Abstract concepts mean nothing to me. I have no fucking idea what any of this stuff means, right? What if you were to say instead, like, you're going to learn how to get people to work their asses off for you, to be so inspired that they come in early, they leave late, and okay, now we're getting somewhere, right? What if you were to say something like, you're going to learn how to spot toxic employees so you can fire them before they destroy everybody else on your team, right? What if you say, you're going to learn how to mediate employee disputes without taking sides or having one of them resent you for taking the other person's side? You're going to learn a secret way that makes everybody happy and immediately agree with you and say, that's right, why didn't I think of that, right? Or what if you say, you're going to learn how to talk to the news media and sniff out which reporters have a hidden agenda that contradicts your company mission, and you think that you're giving an interview in good faith, but meanwhile they're going to twist what you say and write a hit piece on you, right? Now we're talking about concrete things, okay? Do you see the difference?
Mm-hmm.
Are you there?
Yep.
Is Rebecca there?
Yep,
Yes.
she's here.
Okay, good. I'm glad. I'm glad. Okay, let's move on. Thank you, Rebecca. This is super helpful. She says, great. I'm glad it was helpful. Let's move on. Patrick Williamson. Okay, zoom in. This is for multi-level marketing, and he has a pre-head. Do you want to start earning commissions before you have your own online funnel set up? And that's a good pre-head, because the answer to that question, if I'm his audience, is yes. Here's the problem. And nobody talks about this, okay? And I see a lot of A-listers doing this, and this is an area where I disagree with a lot of my colleagues. My contention is that a lot of people don't read pre-heads. And the reason I say this is because I learned from the great graphic designer, Ted Kikoler, that the eye is drawn to big, dark objects, right? That's why the headline is bigger than the body copy, because you want to draw the eye there so they can read it. So if you look at something that's designed by a master designer like Ted Kikoler or Rob Davis or Lori Haller or one of those folks, you will see that the pages are top heavy. It starts with a big ass honking headline and then a slightly smaller subhead. And then you have maybe a drop initial. You know what the initial cap, the drop cap is? Because you're drawing the eye, the bigger, darker stuff, and then you start going down. If you have something big over here and smaller stuff above it, it's like you're fighting gravity. The eye's going to get drawn to the big stuff. Good luck ever getting up to the top. So my contention, and I haven't split tested this, but I probably should, is that a lot of people don't read the pre-head. They miss it. So if you have a headline that you need the pre-head to make the headline work, I think you're going to be dead in the water. So what it says here is, do you want to start earning commissions before you have on it? Then your headline, earn while you learn. Okay, so now I'm seeing earn while you learn, and it's kind of like a trite cliche kind of thing that I've heard before, and I'm not getting any context because I don't know what I'm earning about what I'm learning. I don't know what it's about. It came to me cold. It's like Lee's subject line before about Bruce. I don't know who this Bruce is. Which Bruce is he talking about? Because I'm going about my business. I'm not thinking about martial arts 24/7, and they're not. These people aren't thinking about multi-level marketing 24/7. So the headline has to make sense in and of itself. Okay, so there's your pre-head and sub-head. Now let's look and pre-head and head. Now, Paul, can you do me a favor while I swig some water? Can you read the sub-headline to me?
From subheadline 1.
Yes, please.
At last, you can finally start receiving weekly recurring commission checks through an exclusive program originally instituted by medieval craftsmen to build thriving guilds that monopolized local industry.
How was that, Paul?
I couldn't get it all in one breath, and I got pretty big lungs. So
that's a long ass subhead.
Yeah.
Too long, too much going on. You're going to lose them. They're going to start reading, and by the time they get to the end of that subhead, they're going to forget what the beginning was, and they're going to have to go back and read it over 3 to 4 times to absorb it all. And guess what? They're not going to do that. They're going to toss you in the trash. Okay? So on the checklist that I sent everyone, it says your sentence should have 1 idea or 2 at the most. Let's look at how many ideas are in this. Okay. At last, there's 1 idea. You can start receiving commission checks. That's 2 ideas. What kind of commission checks? Weekly recurring commission checks. So now we're up to 4 ideas. And you're finally going to start reading them. That's 5 ideas. You're going to get them through a program. That's 6. What kind of a program? An exclusive program. That's 7. And this program was instituted by craftsmen. What kind of craftsmen? Medieval craftsmen. It was originally instituted. We're up to 10 ideas so far. To build guilds, that's 11 ideas. What kind of guilds? Thriving guilds. That's 12 ideas that monopolized local industry. We got 14 freaking ideas in there. Okay, here's how it works. When you're reading something, your brain is trying to process what you're reading. It waits for the period. When the period comes, now your brain can process everything that came before that period, get it, and then move on to the next sentence. Okay, that's why we want short sentences with few ideas. You got too much shit going on here. It's going to overload people's circuits. There's no way they're going to grasp it. Okay, now look at, scroll down to the body copy. Hey, Patrick Williamson here. Let's jump into my time machine. Okay, kind of cute, clever. In the later European Middle Ages, between the years of 1250 and 1500 AD, aka the late medieval period, a master craftsman was entitled to employ young people as an inexpensive form of labor in exchange for providing food, lodging, and formal training in the craft. Wow, that's even worse than the one we just looked at. Okay, there's like probably like 20 ideas going on in there. There's no way they're going to process that. Okay, you gotta write short sentences. There's this magic invention called the period. Use it. Okay, now you go on and on about these medieval guilds. Keep scrolling down. He's still talking about it, still talking about it, still talking about it, still talking about it. And then he says, there's been a rich in the meantime. Okay, you don't get to the point. See, you could have said all this stuff about the medieval guilds. You could have said it in 2 to 4 sentences. Okay, let's just get to the point, which is you're going to let them do the same thing. In the old days, they used to have apprentices who would learn from the masters and they get really good really fast. Guess what? You could do it now. First time ever done in MLM. Now you've got something. Okay? And that's it. I mean, and you know, you could talk about if you want, you could talk about the frustration of what it's like now. And again, if you know your audience really well, you can do that. If you are one of them. Typically, I don't write empathy copy unless I'm one of the people who I'm writing to and I really understand them, or if it's an audience I've written to so much and I've researched so deeply that I really understand them, then I do it also. So if you look at the stuff I sent you in the swipe file, you'll see that I did it in a few things. I did it in, but a lot of times I just stay away from it because unless you get it perfect, don't do it. But if you're one of these people, maybe you could use it here because they'd have a lot of frustrations. Otherwise, just say, you know, there used to be these things called internships, apprenticeships. People would learn how to become masters. Guess what? Now you could do it in the MLM business too. First time ever, blah, blah, blah. And that would be it. So let's go on to the next person.
Okay.
Christina. You can write a book. Here's something I haven't talked about yet. It's usually a bad idea to write a headline that is a declarative sentence because there's no, like most of the good headlines are sentence fragments. How to win friends and influence people. Is that a complete grammatical sentence? Anyone?
No.
Pauline? Pauline's muted. True.
No.
How to win friends and influence people.
No.
Okay, somebody else typed in the chat. No, it's not. By being an incomplete thought, now the person has to keep reading because of the Zagornik principle. You need to complete something. Your brain wants to complete it, so you read it. Whereas if you give me a declarative sentence that is a complete thought, I don't have to read it, right? If you have a sentence that says, you can write a book, oh, okay. But if you had a sentence, if you had a headline that said, you, comma, a famous author, question mark, and then your subhead was, if you've ever wanted to write a book but didn't know how, here's a step-by-step guide. Now you got me, right? So you can use a question, you, comma, a famous author, or you can use this fragment. How to write your first book, even if you never wrote one before, blah, 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 something like that, okay? Not the best headline in the world, but you get the idea. Much better than a declarative sentence. Okay. You thought the question was how, but it's actually when to get your book started. Okay, so you're being cute and clever here, which is usually a bad idea. I had to stop and think and read it twice to understand what you were saying, okay, which is bad. You don't want that. You want something crystal clear, no misunderstanding it, easy to process, easy to understand. Stay away from the cute and clever stuff. Just say what you mean what you say, and do it in a clear, concise manner with short sentences and, you know, all that kind of jazz. Okay, so that was the first sentence. The second sentence is a testimonial quote from Shelley Byrne. So you've just tipped off that you're selling me something. Right off the bat, you tipped off that you're selling me something. So chances are good that you've already lost me before you've even begun. Okay, then you have the empathy copy. That voice in your head says you aren't smart enough. Well, maybe yes, maybe no. You can't make a blanket statement unless you know that it's 100% true for 100% of the people reading it, okay? You can talk about your own experience. You could say, I used to feel like I was an imposter. I used to this, I used to that. Nobody's gonna question that because it's you, okay? Or if you're gonna talk about them and use you language, you this, you that, then you gotta do it the way I said earlier with the other person. Like if you're like me, you probably this, maybe you even this, okay? That's fine. But don't be so in their face, like definitive about stuff that may or may not apply to them, because if it doesn't apply to them, they're just going to tune you out and you're dead. Okay? So let's see what else I wrote here. Okay, scroll down to where it says week 1, week 2, week 3, week 4. By the way, mentioning all these other books and having a list of them, scroll back up. That doesn't serve you because it's just a laundry list. It's kind of like, it's the lazy way out of writing copy. Oh, maybe if I just throw in a list of books there. right? You don't have to do the hard work of talking to them. You're just throwing a list of books, and it could backfire on you because now they're going to go, "Ooh, I want to go get the Now Habit." They're going to leave your sales page. They're going to go buy the Non-Habit, Now Habit, or Real Artists Don't Starve. Any of these that have a good title, scroll up a little bit, Nicole. Book marketers know how to write sexy titles. That's how they sell books, right? Scroll down a little. On Writing by Stephen King. Oh my God, I never read that before. Let me go get it. Boom, you're dead. They left your page. They're never coming to your page again. You're giving them 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Keep going down. Keep going down, Nicole. Yeah, 6, 7, 8 different book titles. You just gave them 8 different opportunities to leave your page and go buy those books and never come to your page again. Okay? So don't do that. Scroll down now where it says week 1, week 2, and so on and so forth. Again, these are just features. They're not benefits. And it's boring. It's a laundry list. And it sounds like work. Oh my God, look at all the stuff I have to do, right? You're giving them all the downside, the hard work, without giving them any benefits to get them excited. You want to get them excited about the benefits. You want to show them all the cool secrets they're going to learn that other people don't know, the hacks, how to make writing easier, how to make it a joy, how to make the time fly by, how to get greater ideas, how to get more people to want to buy your book, right? You want to give them all the benefits, and then you want to future pace at the end. You want to paint a picture of what their life's going to be like. The accolades, the people asking them for their autograph, the standing ovations, the royalty checks coming in. You go to your mailbox and, oh my God, look, another royalty check, okay? I hope that helps, Christina.
Next one.
Christina said, thank you. You're very welcome. All right, next one, Mladen.
I see a lot of yellow here, Parris. Is that all right?
I sent you the wrong fucking thing. Yeah. Let me send you the right thing. Or why don't you get out of it and delete the yellow stuff? That's probably quicker.
Okay.
While you're doing that, Melanie Warren is going to favor us with a song.
Is that right? How about no? I only know nursery rhymes. It's not a good look. Do you want to do a little Q&A?
How about a card trick? Oh, we could do Q&A. That's a good idea.
See? Good idea. Yeah. So we got a couple of requests for a copy of the mistake list. Is that a thing we can send
You're
out?
going to get everything. You're going to get the mistake list. You're going to get all the samples that people submitted. That's all going to be in the membership area.
Awesome. Okay, next. Question about ideas. This one's from Jimmy Parent. How would you describe the difference between a proof element and a compelling idea like you just described?
I'm not sure I understand what you mean, Jimmy. A compelling idea is a hook, a different way of saying something. A proof element is how you make people believe what you just said. So you can say something and then prove it, but the way the A-listers do is they pre-prove it before they say it, and then they prove it again, right? So the example being the dentist letter from earlier, right? If you just say why a dentist is the best place to go for Botox, a lot of people are going to tune you out before you get an opportunity to give them a proof. Whereas if you start it with why these other doctors are not the best place, now, ooh, those are the other doctors I was thinking of going to. Let me find out why it's not. And then you say, because they haven't studied facial anatomy and the jawline and this, the way dentist does, really the best place is a dentist. Oh, okay, that makes sense.
Well, let me read this to you again. I read it incorrectly the first time. How would you describe the difference between a proof element and a competing idea? Does that change the answer?
Okay, I'm still not sure I understand the question. Do you want to try to rephrase that, Jimmy, and we'll come back to you?
Here's another one. Regarding writing the first draft, what's the best way to get all that stuff from your head down onto the paper? You guys, you're moving so fast. Okay, so yes, that's the complete one. How do you get it from your head onto the paper?
Just dump, as fast as you can. Or, you know, now with dictation software, you could speak into the computer, you know. But the way Clayton does it and the way I do it and a lot of other people do it is we do an outline first. And then the copy basically writes itself because you're just filling in the outline. So to write an outline, you have to be a linear, logical thinker. What comes first, what comes second, what comes third, and why? And then you can play around with it and move things up and change it as you go. But you start with something, and now you're just filling in the blanks. It's a lot easier. And by the way, when you write an outline, don't just do shorthand like proof element here or part about dentists being better, or you got to write each thing in an outline should be a complete sentence, a clear sentence that even if you showed it to a stranger who's not working on the project, they would understand what you mean. And by doing that, you force yourself to think clearly and write clearly and clarify what the idea that you're trying to convey is. It forces you to think through things. And then you have your outline of all these different sections and sentences, and then you can just fill it in and it's almost like writes itself.
So let's see the next one. Oh, here's a clarification. Okay. Let's see if I can find it. Competing ideas and proof elements. All right. When I'm adding proof elements to my headline, how do I make sure I'm not adding competing ideas like what you described in that letter where you pointed out dozens of competing ideas?
Which letter? Are you talking about things that are logically inconsistent? You say one thing and then you say another thing that contradicts it. Which letter are you referring to, Jimmy? We'll come back to him again. Who's next?
Yes, let's see. Regarding being ruthless about the words that remain in a final product, what are the best ways to cut out the fat? How do we determine what's fat, what's kind of fat, and the true lean muscle? So hell, I see you there. Sorry for the terrible analogy.
Yeah, I got a great way to do that.
Okay, good.
Every single thing in your letter has to go through this test. Does it help my case? Does it hurt my case? Or is it neutral? Obviously, if it hurts your case, you take it out. But you know what? If it's neutral, you also take it out. Because if it's neutral, people won't miss it. They didn't know it was there, so they won't miss it when it's gone.
We've got someone here asking for an example of one of your outlines to get a better grasp of how that works.
I don't have one because, you know, I haven't really written anything in years. I don't know, maybe when you guys have one or something. But, you know, Clayton, if you take Clayton's speed writing course, it's a great example of this.
Okay. And this one's from Dean Edelson. He says, so you create headlines based on Eugene Schwartz's market awareness paradigm as suggested by Michael Masterson.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, we've got a whole bunch more coming in here.
You know,
but
in the book, Great Leads, that Michael Masterson wrote with John Ford, it makes that point that there's direct leads and indirect leads. And for our purposes, for the type of clients we write for, mostly we're going to be doing indirect leads. You're only doing a direct lead if it's a brand name that they already want, or if it's a benefit they know already want, but no one out there is providing it and you're the first one. i.e., a direct lead is one where you tip off that you're selling something.
All right, I've got a bunch more questions. So let's get back to the copy and then do some more of these later.
Are the questions about pieces we already covered, or are they general?
It looks like general.
Okay. You know what? Let's take two more and then we'll go back to the copy.
Okay. Let's see if I can find a good one.
Ooh.
Thought I'd ask it here. This one's from Andrew. Was reading the how to write copy so compelling stuff today and was wondering what the reason or value for the how to versus just write. Is it back to the complete sentence point you just made? It is.
When you say write copy compelling, it's a command statement, and those can work okay, but there are no more magic words in a headline than how to. If God came down on earth and said to me, Parris, you're only allowed to ever use one headline formula again for the rest of your life, I would pick how to.
Okay, this one's about a bonus class you did. It says, in your bonus class number 6, The Secret to Writing Killer Bullets, you recommended that subscribing to Bottom Line magazine to improve your bullet writing. Is Bottom Line still one of the best magazines to study today? Also, do you have any other recommendations?
Bottom Line is still a good example of good fascinations. Here's what Jason Rutkowski did. He got interviewed by the Copywriter Club. You can find his interview if you Google the Copywriter Club, Jason Rutkowski, Rutkowski. You'll see a pretty cool interview where he talks about what he did is like he would find these old controls written by Gene Schwartz, Gary Benzavanga, me, whoever, right? And then he would go to Amazon or Abe Books and buy the books. So the book's out of print, but you can still find used copies. So he would find any great control that he ever saw that had great fascination bullets. He would just go on Google or Abe Books or whatever used book website and buy a copy. And now he can do that exercise where you're looking at the bullet, you're reading the bullet, you're looking up in the book, you're getting the aha experience. Oh, look how clever. Look what he did here. He twisted it to make it more curiosity provoking by doing X.
Okay, so that was my second one. So shall we move along?
Yeah, let's go back to the copy. We're up to copy number 13, Mladen Stojanovic, I think as you pronounce it. I hope I didn't butcher your name too much. Okay, so look at the top. It's a pre-head. I don't like pre-heads. Test it, see what happens. But I'm guessing that a whole bunch of people just skip right over the pre-head and go to the headline. So why bother? Now, watch this presentation and see how to make 1, more money, 2, your dog patients healthier, and 3, create a profit center where you don't do the actual work. So number 1, it's clunky the way it's written, right? Number 2, there's too much going on there, man. There's just, do not put multiple benefits in the headline. Don't do it. You would think, oh, the more benefits, the better, but actually it's not true. It's the opposite. See, I think I may have said this on the first call. If you went to a cardiologist for open heart surgery and you had a consultation with him and you're feeling really good about your decision to get this guy to operate on your heart, and then as you're leaving, he goes, by the way, I also do kitchen cabinets on the side. Here's my card. What is your opinion of him now? How confident are you now in his cardiac ability, right? So it's the same thing when you put multiple benefits. It diffuses the power of the benefit. Now, you can introduce later benefits later on in the copy, but for your headline, pick one thing and focus on that. What's the most important thing to these veterinarians? Is it making more money? Is it getting their patients healthier? Is it creating a profit center where you don't actually do the actual work? My suspicion is that the best headline is going to be about making the dogs healthier because they do not like to think of themselves as that the money's the most important thing to them. And it's not, because if it was, they would have gone to medical school. They wouldn't have gone to veterinary school. Okay? If you're writing to MDs, yeah, they're greedy SOBs. But if you're writing to vets, most of them went in business because they love animals and they want to save animals. Okay? So now let's looking... I read the sales letter, and I think the headline should be that you have this new, amazing new treatment that cures all sorts of ailments safely and easily. I think that's what my headline would be, something to that effect. And then the subhead would be, best of all, it's so simple you can train one of your techs to do it. So now you've got the headline, which is what they want, which is to heal animals. Then you got the subhead of this other benefit, and you're not phrasing it as they're in a way that makes them feel bad about themselves, that they're greedy. You're phrasing it as an, oh, by the way, it's so simple you could train one of your techs to do it. Wow, imagine how many more patients we can help and get through the door if one of my techs could do it. Okay, so I would do something like that. Again, confirm that that is in fact what the audience wants, but that's my suspicion based on what I know about vets. Now, if you look at your opening, this is your ordinary IV catheter. Watch this short presentation until the end, and I'll share you how this ordinary simple IV catheter can add $500 or more pure profit per procedure to your clinic, okay? So here's what you're doing. You're swiping the old John Benson opener for VSL, but you're misapplying the formula. You're trying to do the curiosity, like, here's my sweater, you know, like, what is that? Like a pattern interrupt, but that's not what you're doing here. What you're doing here is you are making the vet, you are implying that the vet is greedy and that all he cares about is money, and he's willing to stick needles into animals just to make 500 bucks. Okay, that's insulting to them, right? And then you go on and you have all these numbered benefits, and you talk about revenue generation and social media and all this. It's like all over the place, man. It's like you vomited on the page everything you could think of. Focus, 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 focus. What's the hot button? What's the one thing you want them to come away with? Because if you try to tell them 5 things, guess how many they're going to come away with? 0. Okay? So you got to focus. And don't use jargon. Don't use corporate speak like revenue streams or any of that bullshit. Talk to them in plain English. And you've got some good stuff in here. So you got to get rid of all the extraneous shit and focus on what you're offering. Okay, hope that helps. Next.
Next is 14.
Okay, this is Sohail or Sohail. I'm sorry, I don't know how to pronounce your name. Chatur. Hope I got that right. And then what do we have? Another pre-head. Like, look at that page real quick. Do you even notice the pre-head?
No.
No, right? Now, in this case, it doesn't matter because the pre-head doesn't really bring anything to the party. But let's look at the headline. How a top secret Amazon loophole can transform you into a profitable book-selling powerhouse, even if you've never sold anything before in your life. We are getting dangerously close to having a headline that's too long and too much stuff going on here, okay? And again, people fall in love with adjectives. Be very sparing with the adjectives. So if you were proof stacking here, I could forgive the length of this headline, but you only have one form of proof in this headline. You got a lot of extraneous words. Book selling powerhouse. You're just like, it's like you read the Power Words report, the John Carlton Power Words report or whatever. There's a bunch of them out there. Clayton had one. And it's like, oh, I'll just add more Power Words. No. It's like, that's what people do when they got nothing better to offer. They load it up with adjectives and power words. It's like the guy putting a sock in his pants, right? To make it look like he's got more than he's got. Don't do it. Let's read the copy now. Hi, folks. Ann Sieg here with E-Commerce Business School. Why are you mentioning E-Commerce Business School? Is it a brand name? Is it a stage 1 awareness? Does the reader give a shit about E-Commerce Business School? Again, you're talking about you instead of them. They don't care about you. They care about what's in it for them. And by saying it's Ann Sieg with E-Commerce Business School, boom, 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 my radar just went up. Oh, you're trying to sell me something. Boop, in the trash you go. You tipped off that you're selling me something. Okay? Used book sales are like heaven for me. So remember I talked about the importance of having the right subject in a sentence, the right doer of the action. You have a used book sale. You have that as the subject of your sentence, right? Wouldn't it be better to have me be the subject? I love used book sales. Isn't that better than used book sales are like heaven to me? Do you see the difference? Mm-hmm. Huge rooms stacked floor to ceiling with books that are always a steal, and you have always in all caps. And so I found the word always distracting because it's screaming in all caps. And why are you saying always? Does that help your case, hurt your case, or is it neutral? Well, I'm going to suggest that it hurts your case because later on you're going to tell them that you're going to show them the secret of how to profit. Well, you don't have to show them a secret because you just said used books are always a steal. I don't need to know any secrets. They're always a steal. I could just buy any old book I want and sell it and make money. You just undermined your case by doing that, okay? So I am showing that as an example of you really have to think things through. You have to be very painstaking in deciding what stays and goes. You have to run everything by that litmus test. Does it help my case, hurt my case, or is it neutral? Now, it says, that was good enough. Where am I? Yeah, right above that crosshead there. That was good enough for me already. Then I found out I could actually make money on my trips to the used book sales. And the best part, Amazon does most of the work. And I read that, I immediately say, bullshit. Amazon does not do most of the work. I'm still running around to book sales, buying books. I'm still writing listings for them. I'm still packing them, shipping them. Don't give me this Amazon does most of the work. It's bullshit. It's just not true. Then you have this crosshead that's almost as big as your headline, which is a bad idea because now all the eye is drawn there, and they might skip over all the copy you wrote, go right to the crosshead. And now it says under this, and it's a quote from Missy Nervick. So again, too soon. You're tipping off that you're selling something. And then right after that, you see, I know a really wonderful man named Brian Cummings who makes a living flipping books, buying them at used book sales and selling them on Amazon. Brian is our director of training here at E-Commerce Business School. Okay, tipping off that you're selling something. And oh, Brian is not some dude you just admire. He happens to work for you. So you have a vested interest in promoting Brian. Okay? You just undermined your credibility by doing that. Something you should know about Brian, he's no ordinary book scout. That's what they call themselves. He's arguably, I hate the fucking word arguably. I want to find the person who first popularized that and stab them in the heart. Why would you say arguably? Why would you do that? Why would you call into question about whether the guy is or isn't? He's arguably the best scout in the country, and you want to know why I can say that? Okay, so he's the best book scout in the country, which means I'll never get the results he's getting because he's the best, right? And because he can regularly walk into a book sale, do this, and no one else can do it. And you go all on this whole thing about he has a magical ability and nobody else is as good. So I'm like, oh, okay, I'm not going to be as good either. It talks about other scouts have tried and failed to copy what Brian's doing. So you're like, okay, others have tried and failed. That means I'm going to fail too. Okay, do you see how you're undermining your case there? All right. There's two different ways to talk about the guru. There's this guy's a genius, everything he touches turned to gold way, and you only do that if it's a done for you service. So if you're selling a stock picking newsletter and the reader doesn't have to do any work, they get the newsletter every month, it tells them exactly what to buy and when to buy it and when to sell it and all that jazz, then yes, you position the guy as a savant, as a genius, as a one in a zillion person. Okay, but if it's a product where you're teaching somebody how to do something, then you have to position the guru the opposite. You have to position them as the guy's a total fuck up loser, couldn't succeed in everything. Everybody laughed at him. Then he kind of finally stumbled onto this thing and now he's getting rich. The implication being, oh, if that idiot could do it, I can do it too. Do you see the difference? If it's a done for you service, I'm giving you the stock picks. You don't have to do any work. You just subscribe and get my picks. Then you position the guy as a genius. If it's I'm going to teach you how to sell books, then you got to position Brian as like he was this hapless person, kept failing at one thing or after another in his whole life, couldn't make a living, and then he stumbled onto this secret. And now he's going to teach you. Oh, okay, that's me. I failed at things. Now, if he can do it, I can do it. Okay, you guys all get this? You get the distinction? Two different ways of going depending on what you're selling. If you get it, please type yes. If you don't get it, type no. Getting a lot of yeses here. Okay, some of them are actually convinced Brian has magic powers. Again, wrong approach for what you're selling. A little background on Brian. His first career was in a neuromuscular surgery. Okay, like why is that in there? Does it help your case, hurt your case, or is neutral? It hurts your case. Fortunately, Brian's wife, Terry, loves yard sales. That doesn't sound like it makes sense, does it? Again, I don't understand why that's in there. I don't know why it has to do with anything. Does it help your case, hurt your case, and neutral? In that case, I would say it's neutral. Then you've got the little pyramid. Scroll down to the pyramid, Nicole. And underneath it says the top two tiers. Let me just read you this paragraph. The top two tiers, books selling for $20 or more online, have the most profitable books, but they're super hard to find. There aren't that many to begin with, and all the scouts are going after them. It's kind of a pretty long sentence. Conventional wisdom says the bottom tier should be avoided at all costs because after shipping and Amazon's cut, you risk losing money on each book. Okay, so you're making an excellent point here, but the writing sucks. So I have to like read it twice to understand what the fuck you're talking about. Because you have long sentences and you're shifting subjects on me and you're using passive voice. And these are all things that hurt your writing. And later on, I'm going to show you how you can use a checklist to eliminate all that crap and make sure that your writing's good. I'm going to show all you guys how to do it. So we're getting to cover 17 people today out of the gazillion people who submitted. But if we don't get to cover yours, it's okay, because at the end of the call, I'm going to teach you how to critique yourself, and you won't need Parris to critique you. Let's go to the next one.
Number 15.
Number 15, look at us. We are freaking cooking. Okay, this is Sanjay Pandey, I think is how your last name is pronounced. Sanjay, are you the first and only person ever to teach people how to write emails? Yes, he says. And he says, not at all. He said, yes, I'm Sanjay. No, I'm not the first person. So Sanjay, what is wrong with your pre-head? I can't tell what's a pre-head and what's a headline. I guess the headline is, do you sell with email, want to sell more? That is a undifferentiated generic headline, okay? I guess you may make the case that you're getting the yes momentum, you're asking questions that they want to answer yes to. And then it says, reclusive geek reveals the secrets that made Ben Settle call him the best technology writer on the planet. So I'm looking at it and I go, is Ben Settle's stage 1 sophistication or stage 2 sophistication? Depending on the audience, the answer might be yes, he is. Just like in the headline that I wrote to you guys, Parris Lampropoulos finally reveals, for that particular slice of the market, I'm a stage 1 or stage 2 awareness. For the rest of the world, I'm not. You've heard the phrase, big fish in a small pond. I'm a big fish in a shot glass, okay? I had to think very long and hard before I agreed to put my name in the headline. It was only after doing a lot of research and getting convinced by people in the niche that I put my name in there. So always be careful about putting the name of the brand or the group. It should only go in the headline if they're a stage 1 or stage 2 awareness, rather, that they're already a brand name. But apart from that, you're not selling Ben Settle, you're selling you. So why do you have Ben Settle's name in there? Right? It's like, is that really the best thing you could say about yourself, is that Ben Settle said something good about you? Wouldn't it be better if you had an accomplishment you could brag about in your headline? Don't you think that would be stronger, Sanjay? So I would do that. I mean, this reclusive geek thing, there may be some cachet to that. It's been done to death, but maybe if you had a new twist on it, on what's different about you as a reclusive geek as opposed to all the other reclusive geeks, you just got to give more thought to your headline. You got to brainstorm a lot of ideas. You got to keep brainstorming hooks and themes until you find something where you go, oh my God, that's it. It's like, bam, wow, that's it. That's what's going to grab people. You're not doing that here. You're just kind of like, okay, whatever. I'm a big fan of Ben Settle, so I might read it because I am a big fan, but why risk that, right? And then it says, however, not everyone qualifies to receive this. It's not cheap. Okay, you're just tipped off that you're selling something. So in the trash you go, right? Now, let's look at dear friend, let's look at a simple but very important number. Email marketing delivered 4,000% return. Okay, that's good stuff. And so you're starting with the general about email marketing, and then you're going to go specific about your email marketing and what makes yours better than the average bear. So that's good. And you've got some good credentials. My clients included the world's largest investment bank. Okay, that's pretty impressive. The fifth largest bank, that's kind of weird. You have bank and bank twice like that. I would call it something else, maybe. The world, or maybe separate them. The world's leading data integration vendor. You're missing an apostrophe there. I'm going to be like the punctuation police here. And then it says, follow easy templates for everything. If you talk to me about analytics and test results, I can easily rattle off statistics and blah, blah, blah. But I've also sold high-end technology courses to a seemingly sophisticated market by retelling the story of the three little pigs and the big bear. And I don't understand what the point you're trying to make here is. I mean, Parris, understand what it is, but the average person would read this and scratch their head and say, I don't know what this guy is talking about. So you have to be crystal clear about what you mean. You have a little gap there. You went from point A to point D and you left the point B and C out, and the reader's not in your head, so they don't know what you mean. So you've got to spell it out for them, okay? I think what you're trying to say is that I'm a numbers guy and I'm a geek, but I know the value of a good story and how you can use it to sell. Believe it or not, I've sold computer software by talking about the three little pigs. I've sold, what do they call that stuff that EMC sells, the data, the storage container, by talking about Kung Fu movies. I've sold, networking systems by talking about, video games, whatever it is, right? Now they understand what you mean. You got to be crystal clear about what you mean, okay? So additional 50,000 revenue. The product sold over 1,200 copies in just a few days and got awarded product of the day. By whom? I don't know what that means, product of the day. Why am I supposed to be impressed by that? Who called it that? Then you have staggering 83.42% click to sales conversion. Okay, that sounds pretty damn good. Since then, I hadn't worked with the market before. I did get some help getting my copy critiqued before going live, and there were my tweaks. This is all, I would delete this. Does it help my case, hurt my case, or is it neutral? I think at best it's neutral, at worst it hurts your case. I get the idea about admitting your flaws up front, and it's a good idea, but you already did that already. You did that earlier in the copy where you said, let's be honest here. I forget where it is. It was, yeah, you won't find me hiding behind fake stats. Okay, do keep in mind some of the traffic I get was endorsed affiliate, which always converts better. Yeah, you won't find. Okay, so you did it once. You don't need to keep doing it. Once is enough. Don't keep admitting every flaw, because now you don't sound like an upfront guy who's admitting your flaw. You're sounding like a guy who's very flawed and fucks up a lot, right? Email case studies. Go down to the bullets, Nicole. I found this kind of funny. Right above the bullets, there's a paragraph that begins with each case study has at least one email completely broken down word for word with the reason for the copy and the psychology behind every subtle nuance explained. That's a long sentence. Every sentence, every punctuation, every grammatical flub, and that cracked me up because you just made a grammatical flub. You said every punctuation. Punctuation is plural, therefore you can't have the word every in front of it. That would be saying like every houses, right? Doesn't make sense. Now, a lot of people that's going to slide right by, but there is a certain segment of the audience that there are sticklers for grammar and stuff like that, and they will automatically think less of you when you do stuff like that. Well, I want those people's money too. So it doesn't cost me anything to be grammatically correct here and not turn that segment of the audience off. Okay, now look at your bullets. How to completely screw up and still make over $600. Well, that's $600 is nothing. That's not a benefit to me, that's a detriment. I would be less likely to buy your course now that you said $600, because to me, $600 is like nothing. Your third bullet, how to take a big dent out of super affiliate commissions even if you don't regularly play. I have no idea what this means. What do you mean take a big dent out of it? Do you mean, I just don't understand what it means. And then you have different testimonials. Under where it says there are no secrets, scroll down, Nicole. Okay, and you look at the second one, it's from Ben Settle, who you highlighted in your headline, and then he gives you sort of a weak, lukewarm endorsement. He says, yeah, those are pretty cool. Okay, is it really? That's the best he could say about it? I guess maybe Ben Settle's not as so in love with me as I said. All right? Again, does it help my case, hurt my case, or is it neutral? Only put stuff that hurts your case. Be selective in what you reveal and don't reveal. As copywriters, part of our job is to conveniently leave things out. Right? So, does it help my case, hurt my case, or is it neutral? Only include stuff that helps your case. What did I say, Russ? I meant help your case. Does it help my case, hurt your case, or is it neutral?
Oh, that was me, Nicole, because yeah. Right.
What's that?
Yeah, it was me. Russ.
Oh, right. Russ is homesick. I'm like, wow, Russ is a real trooper. He has to cool, and he's listening in on our call. That's what I was thinking. All right. Next set of bullets. Scroll down. The subject line, you see that? That set of bullets. Okay. Go down to 1, 2, 3, 4. Fifth bullet. A natural way to create a staccato-like opening rhythm. I don't want a staccato opening rhythm. That's a bad thing. So again, I don't see that as a benefit. I would leave that one out. Look at 3 down. A complete email analysis. You see it? Complete email analysis where actually trashed the product and used a barely ethical trick. Wait a minute. I don't want to be barely ethical. That means I'm shady. That means I'm not. I don't like that phrase. I think what you meant to say is maybe you meant to say something like a very sneaky but totally ethical way to, something like that would work, right? But barely ethical makes it sound like they're doing questionable, borderline evil things, right? They don't want to think of themselves as being borderline evil. If you read How to Win Friends and Influence People, it talks about how Al Capone considered himself an upstanding citizen and a pillar of the community and a good guy. Al Capone, the guy who had all these people murdered and murdered people himself, okay? People want to think good of themselves. Just like we did before, you know, veterinarians don't want to think of themselves as being SOBs, right? Greedy SOBs, right? Let's look at a bullet underneath how to stack. Wait a minute. All right, right underneath that, the full email exchange with the vendor that actually wrote a best-selling email for me. Why would I want the full email exchange? I don't understand what the benefit is to having that. Go down 4 bullets. How to stack the deck in your favor even when you're competing with the best. I think you mean against, not competing with. The next bullet, how to do bonus framing with emotional appeal even when the primary offer was pitched completely. I have no fucking idea what that means. So you gotta be crystal clear. Don't write things in there was a great guy, old mail order guy named Jerry Buchanan, and he had this thing he called the cup of clarity. He said, don't write in a way that you think is clear. Write in a way that makes it impossible for people to misunderstand what you're saying. And I'm going to give you a tool later for how to do that. Let's do, we got 2 more. Wow, we are just freaking cooking, aren't we? I didn't think we'd be able to cover them this quickly. Number 16, Steve Gibson. Look at that, another pre-head. How about that? How to increase your AdWords profits by 643%. Paul, what do you think? You want to buy this?
It just sounds like, one, like it's a pretty big claim, but also it's something I've heard a whole bunch before. So I'm kind of off it straight out the gate.
So it's too similar to other things you've heard, and it's very unbelievable.
Yeah.
643%. And where's the proof? There is no proof in that headline, right? Remember what we said? Your proof has to equal your claim. Never have a claim without proof, right? Here you have a claim with no proof whatsoever, except in the little teeny tiny pre-head where it says where you're a 12-year AdWords veteran. Okay, so now we got a proof element. We have an expert proof. So if that weren't a pre-head and it was part of the main headline, and now the main headline read 12-year AdWords veteran reveals how to increase your AdWords profits, but now I might believe it, or I might at least say, well, 12-year veteran, let me read to see. I'm going to give this guy a chance. Let me read it. But then the next moment you say anything that reeks of bullshit, in the trash you go. Okay? So Vic Schwab book has like 17 different forms of proof. Go through chapter 3 of Vic Schwab. Look at all the proof elements and try to decide which one or which ones would be a good thing to put in your headline, given what your particular story is and what your accomplishments are. Now, even if you said 12-year ad veteran reveals how he increased profit by 643% and how you can too, even that's an improvement because now we've got two proof elements. We've got that you're a 12-year AdWords veteran and that you actually did it. It's a case study, okay? But you can still do better than that. You could do better proof than that. But I want you to start thinking about this. Everything you do, you know, Gary Bencivenga, perhaps the greatest copywriter who ever lived, says, you know, it's all about the proof. It's all about the proof. Anyway, let's read the body copy. You do have proof in your body copy, so, you know, look for things that you could use to put in your headline to lay the groundwork to pre-prove what you're going to say so that I give you a fair hearing and listen to you. Because right now, the way it is, you're getting tossed in the trash. I'm not going to read it. So, dear so-and-so, they didn't expect much. When Cashflow hired me, they'd already been advertising on Google for 8 years. They'd worked with two well-regarded PPC agencies. They had good results, but I hoped I could do better. Within 7 months, I'd increased their AdWords. Okay, that's pretty good. How did I do it? So this is what we talked about last week. There's two kinds of stories. One where you say what happened and you go through the whole process and they're waiting to hear what the answer is. The other one where you say what the answer was, what the result was, and then the curiosity is on how you did it. So that's what you did here. Before I explain how, let me introduce myself. Okay, this was a little clunky to me the first time I read it. It's not bothering me so much this time that I read it. And you said, as I mentioned, I increased PPC profits, but I didn't increase them by traffic by 643%. That's pretty hard to do, especially when you're taking over an account that's been managed by a big name agency. You're not going to find a whole lot of keywords they haven't thought of. Okay, I like that. It makes sense. It makes me say, oh yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I think I might flesh it out a little bit and do a bigger build-up before I reveal the solution. Say something like, I didn't increase total traffic. I didn't come up with more keywords. I didn't blah, 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 blah. What did I do? I simply took 5 often ignored metrics and optimized them. Yes, that's right, I optimized. I know that doesn't sound very exciting or sexy, but you'll be very excited by the results. You see, ... something like that. You see what I'm doing? You just kind of do a little more of a build-up, romance it a little more before you reveal it, right before you shoot your wad. What are these 5 key metrics? One is click rate, another is conversion rate. Now, if you could increase these two numbers by 50%, you'd increase your sales by 125%. Okay, so a couple of problems there. Number one, you're shortcutting the math and you're assuming people are following you along. And I can guarantee you a lot of people are not going to follow and you've lost them because you just did it too quickly without spoon feeding them and explaining step by step with them how that works. The other thing is, if you increase these two numbers by 50%, well, 50% is a lot. I'm looking at it and I go, well, that leaves me out. I could never increase mine by 50%, right? You're going to get some people who just don't believe they can do it. So I would do something like, if you have 5 metrics and increase each one of them by just a little 15%, you can more than double your sales. I would show them that, right? Because now it's a more believable thing, and you're showing them that just these little incremental things, which they believe they can do, will end up doubling their sales. Whereas if you say increase by 50, they're going to say, oh, I can't increase by 50. I've never increased by 50. Okay? Now, some of them have, and some of them will believe it, but some of them won't. So again, I want everyone's money. I want the skeptical people and the gullible people. I want the successful people and the people who are aiming to be successful. I want the people who are with low self-esteem and high self-esteem, right? I want everybody's money. So I always set the highest bar for myself in believability, in proof, in making claims that people will accept, and keep, just, I work my ass off at getting everything so that I could get the highest response rate possible. See, and now your next sentence says, that's because 150% times 150% is 225%. Again, too abrupt, doesn't really sink in unless they understand math. And most people don't understand math. So I would flesh it out and spoon feed them. I'd say, let's say you're getting this many clicks and this many conversions and this many whatevers. Now let's take a look at what happens if you increase each of these by only 15%, right? And then after that, I've done that, I'd show them that 15% easy, and that you can actually increase things by 20, 30, even 50%, right? So it's gradualization. You begin with a claim they believe. Let's say you took each of these 15%, show them math, say, look what happens, you doubled it. That's right, just by making a little incremental increase on each of these by 15, you end up doubling your sales. But guess what? 15% is a cakewalk. I'm gonna show you in a moment how you can increase by 20, 30, 40, even 50%. Now the 50% becomes believable because you used gradualization. Do you see that? I hope you see that. Originally, we were going to have you people mic'd up and stuff. He says yes. But then Russ went and got a fucking flu. Loser. Can't believe he did that. So anyway, but I saw that you said yes in the comments. Okay. All right. So now if you increase each of these by 50%, now you're going to increase your sales by 7.5 times. And it's all doable when you use the secrets I'm going to show you right now. Okay, much more powerful. And then it says in your copy, but the real magic, you see where that is? Nicole, put your cursor over there, but the real magic, nope, up, top of the page.
Sorry.
Yeah, but the real magic happens when you increase the other 3 metrics at the same time. That's because you have 5 numbers multiplying each other rather than just 2. And yeah, okay, you could do it that way, but I like it my way better. I think this way is abrupt, it's abstract, better to illustrate it in a step-by-step fashion, I think, the way I just did it. And I think that's all I've got for you. So let's move on. And this was Steve Gibson, by the way. Let's move on to Rachel Massa. Burning the Midnight Oil in Lisbon, Portugal. Are you with us, Rachel? You're welcome, Steve. Rachel's here, yay. Okay, so this is interesting. Rachel's a pro, and Rachel is writing for a big company and a successful company, and she's doing something that's probably going to work, but that I have a difference of opinion on. And so I'm going to throw some things at her. So everyone thought this mad science doctor was crazy until he cured his own cancer without chemo, radiation, or surgery, okay? So there's a prehead. So again, my contention is that not everybody reads the preheads. And if the prehead is integral to what you're saying, some people are going to miss it. Now let's look at the headline. New radical remedy starts to kill cancer cells within 72 hours and triples the survival rate by more than 80%. For more than 80% of patients, I think you were supposed to say there. I think there's a typo. Now, I look at this and I say bullshit and I toss it in the trash. Okay? It's just a ridiculous, outrageous claim. Okay? Now, I know that it might work to this audience. because this is an audience of very gullible people. There's a lot of gullible, not very bright people on this customer's file. So I think you're going to get, and this is going right just to house list, I think you told me, Rachel, is that correct? Am I remembering correctly? Yes. Okay. So Drayton Bird has a famous quote where he says, there are a lot more dumb people than clever people. So I write to the dumb people, right? And that's certainly a way of doing it. But again, I told you my philosophy. I want everybody's money. I want the dumb people and the smart people. I want the gullible people and the skeptical people. I want the people who are real passionate about this subject and also the people who are only passingly thing. Because I get paid royalties based on how many people I bring in the front end, right? That's how I get paid. The more people I bring in, the more money I make. Now, after that, it's up to them to sell more stuff to the customer, okay? And I think that this particular company's strategy is we are going to hone in, we're going to go after a certain slice of the market. We don't want the whole alternative health market. We want the Christian right segment of that market. That's this company's strategy, okay? My strategy for the health companies I'm involved with is we stay out of politics. So if we were to ask our readers, what is Dr. Schallenberger's political affiliation? The Republicans on our list would say, oh, Dr. Schallenberger's a Republican against me. He's opposed to government interference in my health choices, and he's for liberty, which is true. And if we asked the Democrats on our list, they would say, Dr. Schallenberger's a Democrat against me. He's against the greedy drug companies, just like I am, which is also true. And then we have these all big people in a big tent, and we're all holding hands and singing Kumbaya because we never bring up politics. This company's strategy is different. We want these folks because we know we can get them into a lather and really angry, right? And the former CEO of this company made a joke to me and said, I left because I got tired of telling people that it was Hillary Clinton's fault that they have prostate cancer. So which strategy is better, mine or theirs? I do not know, but here's how we find out. What's their renewal rate? What's their lifetime value? Okay, if they have a really high renewal rate and a really high lifetime value, keep doing what you're doing. Forget I said anything. Okay, but if my renewal rate is just as high as yours or even higher, and if my lifetime value is just as high as yours or even value, that means my approach works just as well in the long run as yours does. So you may as well do my approach and cast a wider net and get more people. Okay, now, so that's number one, and that's just a matter of philosophy, opinion, and until we actually found the numbers, we don't know who's right. I will say though, even when you, within this, you can still think about how to maybe put more proof in it to make it more believable. Even if you're only going after the really diehard people, you could still probably lift response by having more proof in your headlines and stuff like that. Okay, let's go into your body copy. In the next 2 minutes, you'll hear the inspiring story of a Texas doctor who actually cured his cancer without chemoradiation surgery. His discovery is so monumental, so groundbreaking in the medical community that he was awarded the Nobel Peace Prize. I think you meant the Nobel Prize in Medicine, not the Nobel Peace Prize. So who is this genius doctor? Let me tell you. So you're doing good stuff there. You've got the, curiosity, seeds of curiosity things, so they keep reading. And then you explain that it's Dr. James Allison, who, by the way, is the fucking coolest dude, because not only did he win the Nobel Prize in Medicine, but he plays guitar and he jams with Willie Nelson. Really fascinating guy. And when I read this, Rachel, it reminded me that I should email him and ask him what he knows, because he came up with this thing about immunotherapy for cancer, and I want to ask him what he knows about that for glioblastoma for my cousin Ducky. So I found his email address and I'm going to send him an email. Anyway, only a few years ago, he became the patient himself. One day he sat on the rough, crinkly paper covering this doctor's examination table. Very good word picture, rough, crinkly paper. and listen to the words we're all terrified to hear. James, I'm sorry you have cancer. As the terrible news sunk in, James thought about how the same prostate cancer had killed his brother just months before. Then his mind flashed back to his 11th birthday when he stood next to his mother's hospital bedside boy, staring at the radiation burns on her neck and watching her own lifeless skeletal shell of the person he wanted. Boy, am I out of breath. That is one long ass sentence. Look at how many ideas are going there. And I'm going to have to read that 3 times to grasp it all, okay? So use that magic invention called the period to break up your sentences. I see you have quite a number of long sentences in here. So go through and be ruthless about cutting them down. I didn't do a grade level. Do you know what the grade level this is, Rachel?
No.
If you take out the word long, he's just saying a sentence. Jimmy Parris, ladies and gentlemen. He's here all week.
Try the veal.
You know the Microsoft Word, right? You do the spell check, and at the end it tells you the Fleshcade score and the reading ease and the grade level and all that. You want to write at an 8th grade level, absolute maximum, preferably like 6th grade or below, right? And yes, you can do that when you're writing health copy. I do it all the time. I talk about all kinds of technical shit. I still get it down to like 6th or 7th grade level. You can do it. You just have to work at it. Okay, so basically, he was 11 years old. He was staring at the radiation burns on her neck. He saw her die, or whatever it was. It doesn't say that she died. So when his doctors recommended chemotherapy, he knew he had only 2 choices: suffer through the torture of chemo and die, or stand his ground and say no more. Okay, so this does not ring true to me because he's a fucking oncologist. So he's an oncologist. He already knows what the facts are about chemo. He doesn't have to think back to what happened when he was 11 years old, okay? So to me, it's like doesn't quite pass the sniff test. And now you go, he rejected chemo. And at first, the medical community called him a mad scientist until he found an alternative treatment, tested it on himself, and it worked. So I look at this and I say, this could use more story. It's just too abrupt. This would be like if you said, Luke Skywalker wanted to defeat the Empire, and he did, the end, right? It's just like, there's more story there that you left out that could have made it more compelling and interesting and engaging, okay? Let's go to the next page. There's a paragraph right there, Nicole, because Dr. Allison discovered a unique protein substance called Proto-44, and now it sounds like you're selling me something. Rachel, what is Proto-44? Can we find Rachel, Nicole? Can you see if you could find her and promote her and turn her mic on?
Okay, bear with me, Rachel.
While Nicole's doing that, Melanie is going to show us some card tricks or see if there are any Q&As.
Hi there.
Oh, we've got Rachel. Okay, we'll go back to the Q&As. But Rachel does not show her face.
I gotta unmute her.
Unmuted.
There you
Hey
Unmuted.
there. I'm gonna mute myself when I'm not talking because otherwise you get the feedback from yourself.
Okay, sounds good. So, what is Proto-44, Rachel? Can you explain to us?
Proto-44 is the piece of immunotherapy which takes your own body's proteins and uses them as cell blockers to block cancer cells.
Okay, so it's not a product, right?
No, this is an ebook that we're selling.
All right, but Proto-44 itself is not a product.
No, it's not.
See, so I read this and I think Proto-44, because it has a capital P and a little number after that, I think it's some product that you're about to sell me. So you just turned me off needlessly by making me think you're selling something when you're not, right? So I
Yes,
think
it's a protocol.
explain what it is in a way that makes it sound like, so let's back up a little bit. There's the product agitate solution formula, right? And a mistake that a lot of people make is they tell you the problem, then they agitate you, then you tell them the solution is my product that I want to sell you, right? So I remember one of the first times I ever did this about 20 years ago, and Bill Bonner was critiquing me, and he tore me a new asshole. He said, "Oh, how convenient. The solution to my problem just happens to be the thing that you want me to give you money for that you're selling."
Mhm.
And so the way to do it is you don't do that. You say problem, agitate, general solution or category of solution, and then you reveal that you have a product that falls within that category, right? So a great example of this is Dan Kennedy's magnetic marketing speech that he used to give all across the country. He used to go to these Peter Lowy events where he would speak in a big arena with 10,000, 20,000 people in the audience. And he would call out all the business owners in the room. Problem, you're not getting enough customers, you're not making enough sales. And he'd agitate them about it. Then he'd tell them what the solution is. Direct response marketing. And this was a revelation to these folks because they'd never heard of such a thing. And he showed them all these examples. Here's a sales letter we sent. Here's a bunch of postcards we sent. We did this for this Italian restaurant and it doubled their sales. Here's one we did for a local realtor. Here's what, blah, 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 blah. And by the end of this, you're like, wow, this is amazing. I've got to start doing direct response marketing in my business. And then you're like, oh, wait a minute. I don't know how to do direct response marketing. And right then, as if on cue, Dan goes into the part of his presentation where he starts selling his magnetic marketing course. Here it is. It's a collection of ads, sales letters, phone scripts, postcards. We've done it all for you. Every business, every type of industry, all you have to do is fill in the blanks and stampede to the back of the room to buy it, right? So because he didn't say, here's your problem, and the solution is magnetic marketing. He said, here's your problem. The loose solution is you got to learn direct response. And by the way, if you want to learn direct response, I happen to have something. And they're like, okay, I'm here. Here's a solution. He's giving me a discount. I'm going to buy it. So this is what we do with nutritional supplements. We don't go, you're having trouble remembering things. You're having senior moments, forget people's names. Buy advanced memory formula. We say, no, there's an ingredient called Bacopa and it does this. And there's an ingredient called ginkgo, and it does that. And by the way, we have a formulation that has Bacopa and ginkgo, plus it has these other 7 ingredients, and blah, blah, blah. Okay? So that's the principle. Do you guys get this? Yes, Rachel gets it. Brian, Andre, Allison. Does anybody not get it? Getting back to Rachel's copy, when you say a substance called Proto 44, I thought you were selling me a product. So you have to be a little careful about the way you introduce it. Okay, now you say what's even more astounding, it starts working in less than 72 hours. That's less time than it takes to get an appointment with your oncologist. And that's very good. That's an example of getting people to grasp the advantage. Okay, now it says, now Dr. Allison has just won the 2018 Nobel Prize for helping his patients triple their chances of survival with this little known treatment. Okay, you're burying the lead, I think. I mean, here's a great proof element that could have been in your headline, and instead you're burying it on page 3. Okay, how much more powerful would the headline be with a proof element like that, right? Then it says, just like Isaac Breton. And I'm like, what? That's a sloppy transition. Are you saying Isaac Breton also won the Nobel Prize? Because the last thing you said was he won the Nobel Prize for helping his patients triple their chances. Are you saying Isaac Breton won the Nobel Prize? Are you saying he tripled his chances of survival? Well, that's not accurate either. You can't say one person tripled his odds of survival because there's no way of knowing. He cured his cancer, so his chances of survival are 100% because he cured his cancer, right? You can only talk about tripling the odds if you're comparing groups of people, right? So it just logically doesn't make sense, and some people are going to pick up on that. If one group had a 20% survival rate and the other group had a 60% survival rate, you could say, okay, this group had triple the odds of that group. You can't just say one person tripled his odds because it doesn't make sense. A mechanic who was, just like Isaac Breton, a mechanic who was diagnosed. Okay. Then you've got the before and after scans. That's very good. That could be very effective. Because seeing is believing. And then it says, Dr. Allison even cured former President Jimmy Carter. Here we go. Another great freaking proof element buried on page 4. Could have been a great headline. I actually ran a Jimmy Carter cancer headline and it kicked butt. Now, maybe you may be saying this audience aren't fans of Jimmy Carter. Is that what your thinking was, Rachel? Yeah. Okay. I don't know if I wrote any more comments here because I didn't think we'd have enough time. So let's go to Q&A. Thank you, Rachel. Do you have any questions, Rachel, first of all? Interesting, because most of your advice the client advised against. Okay. I had a lot of your stuff in my original draft. Yeah, I've found this to be the case with these particular folks. It'd be interesting if I ever wrote for them and battled it out with them and got them to do a split test my way versus their way. That would be a really cool thing to do. Anyway, I would pay to see that. Yeah, we could get like a, an octagon and we could battle it out there and be a lot of fun. All right, let's ask, first of all, people whose copy I critiqued today. Let's ask those first. If you have a question, type it in the question bar. Rebecca had one, Melanie. Can you find it?
I'll look.
Actually, just start going in order so we don't miss anybody.
Okay, I'll go
Everybody
from the top
will have
down.
the opportunity.
Okay, I'm going to start at the top. This one's from Andre. Parris, you said that 60% of your income comes from consulting. How do you go about getting new consulting clients? And if you had to start your consulting work without any credentials, what would you do?
So you got to have some kind of credentials. You have to have some kind of history of getting results from people. My first consulting client was a copywriting client, and I had done great work for them. And so one day I said to him, hey, I'm going to be in your town next month. Why don't I stop by and we'll just try something out. I want to try looking at some of your stuff and seeing if we could prove it and all that. Risk-free offer, right? No money, no nothing, just going to try something out. We went down there, we did it, worked great. That started the beginning of a consulting arrangement that continues, 15 years later.
Nice.
Next. And the other thing is, if you do a lot of public speaking, if you look at Jay Abraham and Dan Kennedy, right? They do a lot of public speaking, Dan less than he used to, but they have products for sale, all that kind of stuff, right? So Jay, for many years, had information products for sale. And guess what? He wasn't doing it for the money. He was doing it for the branding and as a lead generation to get consulting clients. And here's another interesting thing that I just learned about Jay that my buddy Amit told me. If Jay has to speak at your event, one of the conditions is he has to be the headliner, period. Otherwise, he won't speak at your event. So it's a very strong positioning, right? He will not speak at an event unless he's the headliner. And no sooner had my friend Amit told me that I was looking for something on my bookshelf, and I found a bunch of interviews that were on one CD or DVD, and it was by Joe Polish, and it came in a little case, and it said right on the spine, Joe Polish, with Jay Abraham. He was the only one who got top billing on that CD, even though there were all these other people interviewed on it. What's the next question?
What's your top 3 tips for researching your audience?
Look at the previous controls and the current controls. Get a history of what works and doesn't work for them. Get all the data from your customer, from your client, everything they have, psychographics, demographics, excuse me, testimonials, read what they read, hang out with them, and talk to them and interview them.
Next, any tips on writing to women versus writing to men?
I do like a 2-hour talk on that. But basically, anything that you see in real life translates to copy. So I'll give you one example because we don't have a lot of time, but I'll give you one example. I would go golfing with my college buddies, right? Every year we pick a different warm weather city and we go in March to that city and we golf and we carouse and we pretend we're still 19 years old, right? And I would come home and I was married at the time, and my wife would say, "Oh, so who was it? How was the weekend?" I go, "Oh, it's great." And she goes, "Who was there?" I go, "Oh, you know, Brian was there, Pat was there, Mike was there." "Oh, Brian was there? How are Michelle and the kids?" I'm like, "Didn't come up." Right? And this would floor her. Like, "What do you mean it didn't come up?" Right? Like, "What do you guys talk about?" And penis jokes, you know, make fun of each other, reminisce about our old days, talk business sometimes. But it's like that's what difference between men and women. Women are very much about the relationship and the bonding. So if you look in the samples that I sent you, you will see that I wrote a promotion for the Susan Lark letter. And that promotion mailed like, I'm trying to remember how many million pieces, like 28 million pieces or something. I mean, I made a lot of money from that thing. That kept paying me month after month after month. It was a beautiful thing. And if you look at it, there's a lot of bonding going on in that sales letter, okay? If a male copy chief had been copy chiefing me on that, he would have said, "Cut all this out, get right to the point," right? But for the women in the audience, the bonding was the point. Okay, and Melanie's agreeing, I guess you're nodding in agreement. Okay,
Yes.
so that's a big difference between men and women. But again, it takes a high degree of skill. You gotta hone it and practice it. If you're a man writing to women, you gotta get really good, because if you write it and it's not authentic and it's fake empathy copy, they're just gonna toss it in the trash.
Next, what is the best thing to do as a beginner?
Turn to video number 3, watch that. It has an entire reading list that you should read and the practice you should do. So read all the books at least 3 times. First time you read it, the second time you highlight it, the third time you take notes, hand copy things, write spec assignments, practice, have people critique your copy, constant course correction, and always use the checklist. It's all in video number 3.
Awesome. This one's from Scott. He says, where do we find the membership area?
You should be getting, is this Scott Creed?
Yep.
Scott, you should be getting emails like regularly from us with all the stuff. I will send it to you. I'll just send you from my personal email account just in case there's something glitchy going on. Okay, what else?
Maya says, how long will the membership area be available to us, forever or for a few months?
I have no freaking idea. Kevin's hosting it. You know, I hadn't even thought of that. It's a good question. We'll find out. I mean, we want it forever. Elon says forever. Thanks, Elon. You know, we'll try to keep it up as long as possible. I might have to bribe Kevin or something.
Next, how do you take scientific research and use it in a health supplement copy as proof?
I mean, we talked last week about how you take the studies and you turn them into stories, right? So somewhere in the study, it'll say methodology, and it's written in medicalese, which is impenetrable. So you have to have a medical dictionary in one hand, the study in the other, keep going back and forth, and translate it to plain English and give it story appeal. Actions, not abstractions. And the other thing is, you know, you have footnotes and you cite experts and all that kind of stuff. You use it as the reason why explanation, right? You say, how does this work? Well, it works by, it's a vasodilator, which means it makes your arteries get bigger, which means the blood flows more, you get more blood and oxygen to your cells, blah, 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 right? Reason why explanation.
Okay. Next, can you tell us more about how you outline?
So here's what I do, okay? Let's say I will do a shit ton of research. Many years ago, I saw this thing Gary Benzavenga had written to attract clients. Okay, so this is out there. It's not, I'm not betraying any confidential information. I'm not revealing anything that he taught us at the Benz Who Want to Go 100. I saw a quote from him where he said, we don't start writing the copy till we have 7 times more information than we can use. And I said, oh, if that's what Gary does, that's what I'm going to do, right? Always find out who's like the best person and emulate that person. I mean, that's the secret to success. Success leaves clues. Learn from the best. So I learned from Benzavanga. I learned from Bill Bonner and Mark Ford. I learned from Clayton, okay? So he said 7 times more info than you can use. I took that as gospel. I said, if I'm writing a 20-page sales letter times 7, that means I don't start writing a word till I have 140 pages of research. Okay, if I'm going to have 100 bullets in my bottom line personal piece, that means I'm going to write 700 of them and pick the best 100 to make it in there. So back to your question, you've got 140 pages of research, and the research is about different things. So let's say you're writing a financial promo, and part of your research is his methodology, what he does, his system. So anytime you find something in the newsletter about that, you take that and you type a note on it. In the old days, we used to have these things called business cards, right? Not business cards, index cards. And Ted Nicholas said the great thing about index cards is you could play around with them and you change the order, put this in this pile, put that in that pile, okay? I still do that, except now I do it in a Word document. So different pieces of information fall into different categories. One might be his methodology. One might be his current stock picks. One might be his track record information. One might be his biographical information. One might be his soapbox stuff where he's ranting against the government and the Federal Reserve or whatever it is. One might be, whatever, right? So you have different categories. Let's say you're doing a nutritional supplement. One might be about why this particular ingredient and the studies for it. Another one might be about that same ingredient and the scientific reason why it works. Another one might be a different ingredient. Another one might be about the quality control we use when we make our supplements. Another thing might be testimonials. Whatever they are, there's different categories of information. And so as I'm putting all the research into the document, I am having headings above it so I know what category it pertains to. And then, of course, underneath, I put the citation. Where did I get it so that I can back it up and the client can fact check me and all that stuff. Then what I literally do is I print out those 140 pages or 200 pages or however many it is, and then I take scissors and I cut them, and they're almost like these index cards, except some of them are this big and some of them are that big. And now I start putting them in piles. All the stuff about the scientific reason why Bacopa works goes here. All the studies on Bacopa go there. All the scientific research on why ginkgo works goes here. All the studies about ginkgo goes there. This section about this here. The patient stories go here. This goes there, right? And then I have other things that occur to me, little ideas as I'm working. Little ideas pop into my head. I start keeping those and I put them in a pile. Now I've got all these piles and I stand up and they're all over the floor and I'm looking at them. I go, what would be the logical order for this? Okay, I can't talk about this yet because in order for them to hear this, they got to know this first. So this comes first, then this goes. What else? This would make sense here. Okay, all the stuff about Bacopa go together. Remember, story, reason why, studies. So here's my story, here's my reason why, here's my study. And now you're doing all this and the order is starting to come to you. What makes the sense? What's the logical order and the best way to present them? And now you've got your outline because you have all the component pieces in the correct order. That's your outline. You write a sentence for each part of the outline and then you fill it in, and you can take little pieces of notes you have, and you took the notes verbatim from the source material, and now you can copy and paste them into that section, but then you change the wording around, number one, because you don't want to plagiarize, number two, because you're a copywriter and you can say something much more simply and elegantly than the academic person who wrote that thing. Does that answer your question?
Feel like yes. Next, do you use copy blocks or a structure of sections you always include?
Yes.
I'll wait. That's
yes,
it? Okay.
both.
Okay.
I mean,
Yes,
Ask
the
the
question.
no question. All right.
what's the difference between a copy block and a section?
Well, that's a good question, though, isn't it?
Yeah.
Because
I mean,
we
I
also,
do what
the
I
word
just
structure
did. I
could
don't
also
know.
be about the structure of the promo.
Say it again.
because the word structure here could also be about the structure.
Right,
of the
you know, you're
promo.
assembling copy. Bill Bonner used to do it. I learned it from Bill Bonner because Bill would write a control to launch a product, and then he'd hire us poor suckers to try and beat his control. But the good news is that he would copy chief us and coach us so we could beat his control. But anyway, when I would look at his controls and I would look at the source materials, I looked at it and I go, I'll be damned. All this fucker did was copy and paste stuff from the source materials and turn them into direct mail piece. That's all he did. Well, I'm going to do that, except I'm going to simplify the language like Gene Schwartz used to say. And so just that'll give me an edge. And then if I have a good hook and a good this, then I can beat Bill. And I did. I've beaten him like 100% of the time I went up against him. And, you know, but I learned, he taught me how to beat him. So, you know.
So it works out.
Yeah.
Next, what is the best way to figure out a hook?
There's a lot of ways, but what is this similar to that I talked about in the first call? And listen to the Kevin Rogers podcast. We talk a lot about that in there.
This one's from Rebecca, and you did a critique for her earlier.
I did, yeah.
When you are writing copy for something that doesn't exist yet, for
Yes.
example, a course that hasn't been built, how would you approach finding a way not to write vague, abstract copy? And she says, my sales letter was an example of this. In the what's inside the course section, I didn't actually have any information to work with, but could only go so far with inventing stuff.
You have, go ahead, I'm sorry.
Any tips on how to get from the client the info you need to create fascination bullets and specifics?
Yeah, you interview the client. So you have a wonderful opportunity, Rebecca, because you can build a product from the ground up. You can start from scratch and build the ideal client, the ideal product, right? So Ted Nicholas said, if I had unlimited godlike powers, what benefit would I bestow on my reader, on my audience? Answer that question and then create something to fulfill that. Come up with the most outlandish promises. Find out exactly what they want and give it to them, and then make it become true by creating a product that really fulfills on them. Okay, give you an example. There is a sample in the swipe file I sent you guys for boner pills. I got railroaded into doing, this guy had wanted to hire me for a long time, and I was too busy, and I've known the guy forever. He might be on the call. He's a good guy, a friend of mine. He was on the first call, I know that. And I had an opening in my schedule, so I sent an email, and he said, yeah, I'll take the opening. And I agreed without even knowing what the product was, and then he told me what it was. I'm like, okay. So I wrote this thing, and I'm like, what would I want? Here's what I want. I want like some crazy ass herb that like the Chinese emperors used to use in their harems to have sex with like a dozen women at a time. That's what I want. And so came up with this crazy idea, did some research, lo and behold, found out that there actually was such a thing. And it was legit. It was on a .edu website, okay? Give you another example. There was a heart thing. I go, what benefit do I want? What benefit do I want? Here's what I want. I want something so good for your heart that there were people who needed heart transplants, and they were on the waiting list for a heart transplant. And then they took this pill, and within weeks, their heart got better, and they didn't need to be on the transplant list anymore. Did some research. Lo and behold, there was a study on coenzyme Q10 showing that very thing. Okay, so just brainstorm. Know your audience so well that you know what they want well most. Ask yourself that question. If I had unlimited godlike powers, what benefit would I bestow on them? Then see if you can find it. And if you can't, find what is true that comes as closest to that as possible. And then interview the guru and grill the guru. And don't let him give you weak shit. Don't let him give you bad answers. Keep challenging him. And one thing I love to do is play devil's advocate, right? So whatever he says, I automatically argue the opposite. And if he's any good, he will passionately argue his position, and he will write your copy for you. So there's my answer.
All right. Next. Doesn't a how-to headline tip off that you might be selling something?
Not necessarily. You could go on any, you could read articles on how to, all kinds of places. You could see blog posts on how to places, how to do things. Right?
Yep. All right. Jimmy has a clarification.
Yes, sir.
When does proof stacking cross the line to introducing too many competing ideas?
That's a great question. I don't know that I have a magic answer for you. I guess you just kind of know. If you show the copy to people and their circuits are getting overloaded, you went too far. And most of the time you don't need proof stacking. You only need it if you're making really big claims. And I wish I had like the easy way to teach it to you so you're able to do it like that, but it just takes practice, unfortunately. But your goal is to make it seamless. Like when I showed you those headlines on the first call, before I pointed the proof stacking out to you, you wouldn't have noticed that it was there. So that's your goal always, is to be totally invisible, to do techniques and people don't know you're doing techniques on them, because it all flows naturally and it's smooth and simple and easy, right? You want your writing to be invisible. Elmore Leonard, you guys know Elmore Leonard? Type in the chat box if you know Elmore Leonard. He died a couple of years ago, one of the great novelists, right? All these great movies that got made from his books, real suspenseful and all this stuff. And he said, your goal is to make your writing invisible. Don't ever call attention to your writing. You don't want people to say, wow, you're a great writer. If they're saying that, it means you've failed. Okay, it's like Gary Halbert when he would bring the copy to Barney's Beanery and read it out loud. If people go, boy, Gary, you sure write real good, he knew he had a bomb. But if people said, oh my God, where can I buy that? He knew he had a winner. So back to the proof stacking, it can't seem obtrusive. It just has to be in there like seamless. And I wish I had a magic advice on how to do it. It's just one of those things you practice and you get a feel for, and model other people and see how they're doing it and say, oh, look, that's interesting what he did here. He did X. So then you try X and see if it works for you. And run your copy by other people. That's the ultimate test. If they're like eyes are glazing over, you know, you went too far.
Okay. This one, if you have no expert and you're not one either, how and when do you weave in the who am I part in the copy?
I'd have to know more specifics, but you know, you can anoint yourself an expert. That's one way of doing it. Dan Kennedy always talks about that. You can find an expert and pay him. That's another way to do it. And you don't have to pay him anything up front. You can pay him a percentage. Or if you'd rather pay him up front, you can probably get away cheaper. We have all these doctors who get like a percentage of sales and we pay them very handsomely. And then I found out recently that there are other doctors who are endorsing products and they just get this little flat fee. And I was like, wow, I didn't know you could do that. I remember talking to Roland Frazier, who's one of my, another one of my mentors and heroes. And I was talking about, how do I know what to give so-and-so? And Roland goes, just ask him. I'm like, oh, okay, right, you could do that, right? And he goes, yeah, and if they're like most people, they'll say $10,000 a month. That seems to be the magic answer that most people say. I'm like, oh, so I could pay $120,000 a year instead of $500,000 a year. Look at that, isn't that interesting? But back to the question, what was the question? If you're not an expert and you don't have one. The other thing is you could borrow expertise. So there was a sales letter that Ted Nicholas wrote a long time ago for a cancer book where he had this Nobel Prize winning doctor. Well, guess what? She had nothing to do with his book. She wasn't related in any way, but he just used her. He just used public things that she had publicly said. Clayton did the same thing. He quoted Linus Pauling, right? And if the person's dead, well, that makes it easy. They're not going to sue you because they're dead. And if they're not dead, they're probably not going to sue you. They'll probably send you, and please don't take any of this. Always run things by a lawyer. I'm just telling you my experience. I'm not saying this is good or bad. I'm not advising you to do it. I'm just throwing it out as a possibility that I know that we've written about public figures in the past. And usually what happens, we run the ad, they send us a cease and desist order. We say, okay, we won't run it anymore. and we do something else, but in that time we've made some money. Okay. Not advising you necessarily, just throwing it out to open your mind to different possibilities.
Next, Judy says, can you address the use of questions in copy? I've noticed not a lot in these examples, and I love questions for increasing engagement. So I'm thinking, am I missing something? Should I reduce the use and maybe use more open loops instead?
It's using questions is fine. I don't do it a lot, but other people do. It's like anything else. Just don't overdo stuff. Don't use things as a crutch. Okay, I've taught you as techniques now. Don't say, okay, and just over and over and over and over the same technique. You got to have a wide variety of things in your toolbox. Questions is one of them. I don't use them a lot, but there are some other really successful copywriters who do.
These two questions are related and they're from two separate people. So one is, what's the most effective way to segue from talking about general solutions to your solution? And then the related question is, would you also mention the problems with the general solution too?
I didn't understand the second question.
So I believe she's talking about category of solution versus specific solution. And I think she's asking, would you point out problems with the category of solution?
You could, yeah. You could say, the problem is you're not making money. The solution is invest, but not all investments are equal. So if you buy apartment houses, now you got to be unclogging people's toilets at 2 a.m. If you buy bonds, you're getting a very low return. If you're buying this, and you point out the disadvantages of the things, and you systematically dismantle and shoot down all the other options until the only thing left is your option. And then your option might be a general thing. Your option might be invest in blue chip stocks, right? But then you go segue to the specific solution, which is my stock picking service, because look at my track record. I've been in the S&P every year for the last 12 years. I've done this, I've done that, whatever it is.
All right, so I think you answered both of them because that included your segue.
Okay.
This one's from Rachel. How do you find the balance between more story and dragging on and need to get to the meat when you tell them what they should do with the info you've given them?
Read it again.
How do you find the balance between, in quotes, more story and, in quotes, dragging on and need to get to the meat when you tell them what they should do with the info you've given them?
It's dragging on if you're boring. Okay, number one. If it's not boring, then it's not dragging on. Number two, remember that everything we do is a means to an end, the end being buy our product. So everything you do, whether it's story, whether it's reason why, whether it's studies, whether it's getting people angry and agitated, whether it's empathy copy, it's only there to get them to buy. And so use just enough of it to get to your goal. And I know that's not a specific answer, but it's a guiding principle to ask yourself. And again, does it help my case, hurt my case, or is it neutral? You can cut out a lot of fat just by asking yourself that question all the time. So let's say you have a story, but it's just an okay story. Don't put it in. Have a great story.
Next, Ashley says, how do you clearly outline spiritual or consciousness benefits of a product or service without sounding too abstract?
I'm not sure. I'd have to see the example.
Okay.
There was somebody who submitted copy that was spiritual, and I didn't critique it because of that very reason. I wasn't sure exactly how to do that.
Okay, next. This one's from Scott Creed. My letter is intended to recruit a commissioned sales force. Their role is to connect teams to our fundraising platform. Should I start from scratch? Am I mixing too many ideas?
I think you are mixing too many ideas. You got to find out what's the number one hot button. Is it the income? Or is it the raising money for the school? And, maybe you could say the income's the number one, so raising money for the school is gravy. Or maybe you could say the raising money for the school is the number one and income's gravy. But if you introduce the income in there, it starts getting a little murky because now they feel like they're shills. They feel like they're doing something a little scammy, because really they should be doing it just because they love their children. You got to really find out the audience. The other thing is, just from a strategy point of view, I don't know if going after individual parents is a strategy, because there's PTAs, there's booster clubs, there's all this kind of stuff. You gotta, I don't know the particulars, but you're consulting with Jay, and Jay, there's not a situation that Jay hasn't seen before. So, he could probably help you with all the strategy parts, not just for this business, but for your existing other businesses. I don't know if you guys know this, but Scott's like one of these entrepreneurial guys. He creates this new business idea like every 2 seconds, and they're all successful. So he can help you with the camp. He can help you with the store. He can help you with this stuff. I think it's going to be awesome for you.
This one is from Rebecca. Do you have any tips for writing copy for someone who has trained their audience not to buy from them by giving away everything for free? You said that it was hard to overcome that. I
said it might be. You'll have to see. I guess my advice would be maybe do a tripwire, which I don't know if you know what a tripwire is. It's a term that was coined by the folks at Digital Marketer. It's a really low entry, cheap product. Because someone who's given you money in the past is 10 times more likely to buy from you than someone who's never given you money in the past, even if it's only like a $5 thing. So find like a $5 or $10 thing that they really want, sell it to them, and now market to those people instead of to the whole list of the leads. I mean, if you're marketing by email, it costs you nothing, so you could keep doing it. But, tripwire, lead magnet, which is free, to tripwire, which is low priced, to regular product, to more expensive product. It's an ascension model.
Okay. This one is from Asmund, and he says, I had the copy that ought to be burned. I understand that I picked the wrong audience and that I totally derailed the copy, but linguistically, did you find any big mistakes?
I could tell that English wasn't your first language. Because not so much because your grammar was off, but because you would use the wrong expression. Like a grandkid's not going to say to his grandfather, why don't you have more dough? So I don't know if you watch a lot of TV, American TV, or read a lot of American publications, but you just want to immerse yourself, and you got to have a good ear so you can, and get your copy critiqued and stuff like that.
Parris?
Yes.
Although I speak English, people might think that that's an advantage. Wait a minute, I'll just speak American so you can understand me. But even I have that issue with the American turn of phrase and things like that. Yeah. I'm constantly on Google and making sure that, the turn of phrase that I'm using is actually appropriate. Mm-hmm. And just to get that authenticity into the copy.
Right. Yeah. So I've had a lot of copywriters work for me who live in the UK, who live in Australia, and things are a little different than they are here in the US. You spell things differently, you use words. Like in England, they say, do you have a plaster? And they mean like a Band-Aid. And we're like, mm-hmm. Plaster? What, you got a crack in your wall? Like, we don't understand, right? So there's like little idioms, right? There's stuff like, if you say fanny in the US, it means your butt. If you say it in England, it means a vagina. So you don't want to say that.
Yep.
Things
Smack
like that.
someone on the fanny here.
What's that?
I said, don't smack someone on the fanny down here. I tell you what,
right.
You get a punch.
So, you gotta just immerse yourself in the culture that you're writing to. And then it's good if you have a good copy chief who can point stuff out to you. What else?
This one's a tech question. How can we download the 3 videos? I think only the first one was downloadable.
Yeah, you just got to watch them on the site. I don't think they're downloadable. And I'm not a tech guy, so I'm the wrong guy to ask. And Kevin's doing me a favor, so I'm not going to pester him with stuff like that.
This one says, Dear Parris, you've done it all. Raised the money for Talkie, over-delivered on your promises in this training.
I'm going to go to Disney World. Is that the question?
That's what it says. And shaved years off our copywriting learning curve, and apparently is also psychic. After going to Disneyland, what's your next move? Will you be going back to obscurity? What I'm trying to ask is, will I ever see you again? Tears in my eyes? Also a smiley face?
I'm going to go back to obscurity. You may see me around if you happen to be somewhere where I am, but yeah, I'm just going back to my old life.
awesome. Next, Deb says, thanks. I just double checked as well, and I see the emails with the Zoom links for those meetings, which are awesome, but nothing on the membership area.
Well, it's where the meeting, the Zoom links. Okay. There's a thank you page. Thank you for donating to Taki's GoFundMe. And whenever a new recording comes out, we send an email to the whole list saying the new recording's up, and those recordings go on that same page. So it's one page. It has the recordings, the bonuses, the handouts, everything all on one page.
Okay.
And if you don't get it, just email and we'll figure out why you didn't get it and we'll send it to you. But everyone should have a link to that page.
This person says,
first, please do me a favor, look in your spam folder.
yes. Next, what is a range of low to high for royalties to ask for, and how do you agree with client to verify and get paid? Is there any verbiage you can make available to us? Thank you for your no holds barred way of getting through to us.
Thank you for saying that. A lot of it is going to be based on trust. You want to work with people you trust, right? In the old days, we used in direct mail, we didn't get paid a percentage of sales. We got paid per piece mailed. And the reason was that was really easy to track and really hard to fake, because you would get a receipt from the post office. Here's for the loading dock that 1 million pieces were dropped, multiply by however many cents a piece, and that was your royalty. Now, of course, it's percent of sales online, but they have tracking stuff. They could send you a report. If they wanted to screw you, they're going to screw you, right? You could put a clause in your contract that you have the right to audit their books. Go for it. But guess what? The cost of auditing the books is going to be more than the royalty you make. So in the end, it comes down to clients that are honorable, ethical, and said you just put in the contract that they're going to send you a report, some kind of reporting. See how they do it with their other writers.
Next, this person says, swipe file, where to find the best sales letter and video sales letter. I loved yours.
Say it again.
This person, she's requesting swipes. The question says, swipe file, where to find the best sales letter and video sales letter. I loved yours.
You're asking where to find my stuff?
I think she's asking in general. And I think she's also complimenting you that she liked your stuff.
Well, thank you for the compliment. I appreciate that. You do have a swipe file of my stuff on your download page, on your thank you page, on your members area, whatever the hell you want to call it. You're not calling it a members area. It's a thank you page. So you got plenty of my stuff there. You got at least a dozen, I think. Here's what you do. You subscribe to AdBeat. Adbeat.com. And you can search and you can find what the top performing stuff that's being run now. And AdBeat is going to show you native ads mostly. And it'll tell you how well they're doing based on estimated ad spend penetration. They have like this algorithm that figures out whose copy is crushing it. And they have a formula where they guesstimate what that person is spending on ad spend. So you could spy on all your competitors. You could see all their ads. You could see all the native ads, and then you click on it, and it takes you to the sales page, the video sales letter, whatever it is. Great tool. There's a couple other ones, too, that are supposed to be pretty good. The one I use is AdBeats. AdBeats or AdBeat? I think it's adbeat.com. So you subscribe to that. Then the other thing is, if you go on Facebook and you click on the Facebook page for any marketer, you can scroll down that it says info and ads, and you click on that, and it's going to show you the Facebook ads they're running. Now, it's not going to tell you how well they're doing, but you're going to see what they're doing. You're going to be able to spy on the competition. And then apart from that, there's a lot of products that have swipe files from the past of the great writers. There's Brian Kurtz's Titans thing where he has some swipe files. There's Lawrence Bernstein who sells something that for like $8 million, every piece ever mailed. It's like really expensive, but he has a lot of stuff on there. There's, I don't know if they still do the Who's Mailing What archive. That might be defunct, but Who's Mailing What was a good one.
Swiped.co.
Say it again.
Swiped.co is a good one.
Swiped.co, right. I forgot about one. That's another one. Yeah. Thank you, Pauline.
These questions are from Dean Green. He says, what does your editing process look like? And then he also says, do you have any tips for beating a control?
This is everything I'm teaching you is how you beat a control. There's no one tip, you know, it's just everything. I just, you know, it's a mission. When losing is not an option, have a mindset that losing is not an option, and you're going to do anything and everything to beat that control. Of course, anything and everything that, as long as you're being honest and ethical and legal, right? And that's my advice for that. What was the first question? Oh, editing.
What's your editing process?
I edit while I write. I don't advise that for everybody. For most people, it's better to just write a shitty draft and then go back and edit it. But, you know, like I said, I start every day by looking at what I wrote the day before and reading it and saying, wow, this sucks, and just fixing it. And you have to have a good ear for writing, you know? People read with their eyes, but they really read with their ears. They're hearing a voice in their head, and it's got to sound right. If it sounds clunky, there's a problem. And in a moment, I'm going to show you how to fix clunkiness. I hope you guys are sticking around, because one of the best parts of the talk is coming up at the very end. So let's see if we can get through these questions really quick to get to that, because it is getting late.
Okay, great. Do you have a suggestion for a good tripwire for copywriters to sell their services?
Asking me to do your work for you again.
Not
Find
me, I'm
something
just
unique
reading
no
them.
one else is doing. Look at what Kevin does with his. Kevin did, what is his tripwire? He has a great thing. What is this again?
The 60-second sales hook.
60-second house cook, but there's another thing he has also. I don't remember. Anyway, keep going.
Four times
what,
6.
again, ask yourself the question, if I had unlimited godlike Parris, what my audience want, that'll give you a direction to go in.
This one says, from Maurice, he says, thank you for reviewing my copy on the replacement window service. Looks like I need to write a sales letter. Do you have any ideas for a good hook?
What do people hate about your industry? Whatever that is, be the opposite. If I were a home improvement contractor, I'd write all about how these motherfuckers come in your house. They have no respect for your things. They track plaster dust all over the place. They never show up when they're going to say they are. They come in, they start the job, they rip open the wall, then they disappear for 2 weeks and you can't find them because they're juggling all these other jobs and they just wanted a down payment from you. And you're stuck living in a construction zone for 2 weeks. And we're the opposite of that. The moment we start, we don't leave your house till we finish. Our guys wear little booties on their feet when they come through your house. They take care of your stuff. They treat you with courtesy. There's a no smoking policy. There's a this, there's a that, right? Be the opposite of what everyone hates about your industry.
This one is from Sohail. He's calling me out now. He says, Melanie said on a previous call, you're not taking on more cubs. Would you change your mind?
I don't know, man. You know, they did a study, and for every copy cub you take on, you lose 6 months from your life expectancy.
Or more. It's not for the faint of heart.
I don't know if I'm doing this again. That's my answer.
Okay. This one, how would you add proof elements to a headline such as, in quotes, are any of these mistakes tanking your self-esteem? Or is it not necessary with a headline like that?
Probably not necessary with a headline like that. Because you're not making a claim, you're asking a question. The purpose of proof is to equal the claim. The bigger the claim, the bigger the proof. If you're not making a claim, you don't need proof. So it'll just go right in. Oh, it's a question. Oh, it's a quiz. I love quizzes, right? Look at all the stuff on BuzzFeed and everything else. Everything's a quiz. Which Harry Potter character are you? Look at Cosmopolitan. Take this sex quiz, right? People love quizzes.
This one, what are your favorite business models and why?
That's a very broad question.
Indeed.
There's like a gazillion. It depends on what you're selling.
This one from Joshua, it says, is the SRDS still a valid way we are supposed to send? That's not right. Is the SRDS still a valid way of searching opportunities for product ideas to sell and magazines to advertise in?
I would say yes. They're online now. I don't think they have the books anymore, but you can go to srds.com. I think it's still valid, yeah.
This one, he says, where are the copy critiques? I missed the beginning of the call. So are they being provided
They're
in
going to
addition?
be posted on the website. You're going to get a recording
great.
of this call, plus all the copy, plus the 2 other documents.
Okay.
the top 17 mistakes, and then the next document, which we're going to be doing in a moment.
This person wants to know, where can we find any other courses from you?
There aren't any.
Okay. This one's from Rachel. She says, I tried to write a sales letter from a certain company. She mentions the company. And for one of their live programs, but the company would not give me any testimonials or research, nor would they answer any questions about the product. How would you get info you need to write a potential new control when the client won't play ball?
I'd fire the client is what I would do. But if you're stuck with it, if you're on the hook and you got to deliver something, just do outside research, go on the internet, do whatever you can, you know, and then do your best and then move on.
Hey, Parris.
Yeah.
One thing that I found that works really well for that, and it's, you know, maybe too late for this client, but every time you have a new client, insist that they give you a list of things that you need before the work even begins. And you can let them know, like, once I have this, then I will start writing.
That's right.
So you keep them on the hook for it.
That's right. Yeah. Thanks for that, April. Yeah. Great advice.
This person says, can you run through some details on the 7 bullets listed on the before you start writing list on your conversion X-ray checklist?
My what?
Was that one of your supplemental materials? Can you run through some details on the 7 bullets listed on the before you start writing list on your conversion X-ray checklist?
That's a checklist. He's going to go through that.
Okay. So I'll mark that one for later.
Okay.
Okay. This one, I got 2 left. First, you mentioned you're a golfer. Have you ever hit a hole in one?
I almost did. I won a sleeve of golf balls because I drove onto the green and came like this close to the hole. That's the closest, but I'm not really a golfer. I'm a shitty golfer. I'm like a horrible golfer. They have my picture up, like, you know, when I step up to the tee, anything can happen. There's no telling what could happen or who might get injured.
This one is a comment. It says, please tell Parris that I've learned more in these 3 calls about sales, great copy, and calls to action than through any other medium of education.
Oh, thank you.
Additionally, I want to hug Joe Polish for the original Talkie-inspired email because this is exactly what I needed to hear at the perfect moment. Much love.
This is one of Joe's people. Who is it?
Jay Shoup.
Jay, I don't know if you and I know each other, but definitely we should, you know, get to meet at one of the events. I don't know when you're going next. I'm supposedly going to the February meeting, but I'm not sure. There's a lot up in the air.
Okay. And then in response to the golfer comment, JJ says, if you're ever in the DC area, I would like to take you to play golf at a great course in the area.
Thank you. You're probably going to regret that.
And that's it.
All right. Done with the questions. Let's bring it on home, you kids. I'm going to turn the light on because it's getting dark here in Connecticut. I'm going to turn a bunch of lights on, and then we will bring it on home. Whoopsie. I almost tripped over my coffee table here in my office. By the way, you guys, this is the view outside my office. Not so great in the winter. Can you guys see? Oh, no, you can't, right?
Yeah, we can.
Yeah. Yep.
Got the marina out there.
There's a marina there. There are sailboats and all that kind of stuff. I love that stuff. So anyway, all right. Nicole, AKA Russ Reynolds. Can you please do us the honors and show us the final document?
All right.
Russ Reynolds, it starts. Look at that.
Okay.
All right, let's make this bad boy bigger. Oh, you're in a Dropbox or something, right?
It's my Google Docs.
Google Docs, right. That's what it was.
Okay.
Is that big enough or do we need it bigger? This makes me tingle, as Joshua wrote. All right. Patricia says fine. We'll assume it's fine unless we hear otherwise. Okay. How to self-critique your copy. Wouldn't that be cool to be able to self-critique And you can do it using something called the Cub method, which was developed by the folks at Agora. I think Mark Ford was one of the people, I forget who else, but brilliant method, very simple. So you can improve the quality of your writing by using the Cub method, which was developed by the folks at Agora. The acronym CUB stands for confusing, unbelievable, or boring. All you have to do is give your copy to several people to read. Ask each person to put a C next to any sections that are confusing, a U next to any sections that are unbelievable, and a B next to any sections that are boring. You do not have to give the copy to copywriters. In fact, you'll do better if you give it to regular folks. Dan Rosenthal, by the way, at his ad agency, he used to have everybody read the copy. The receptionist, the janitor, okay? You want it to be of universal appeal as far as being understandable and all that kind of stuff. And here's my little twist on it. I'd recommend some of the following as good people to give it to. So the first bullet, give your copy to a 6th grader. You want your copy to be so simple that even a 6th grader can understand it. My second bullet, give your copy to someone with ADHD or a really short attention span. You want your copy to be so compelling that even the most distractible person is hooked and captivated and able to read the whole thing. My third one is give your copy to someone who is really skeptical. We talked about this, right? You want your logic and your proof to be so airtight that even the most hardest skeptic is convinced that what you are saying is true, okay? So those are some good categories, but just give it to a bunch of people and have them, give them a yellow highlight sections and right next to them, C for confusing, U for unbelievable, B for boring. Now scroll down, Nicole. Once you, too far. Once you've gotten, whoa, you see where it says once you've gotten?
Yeah.
Put that at the top. Okay, good. Once you've gotten the copy back, look for all the places that are marked with C's and U's and B's, and then use the checklist below to fix those sections. So here's the checklist for fixing copy that is confusing. You got to make sure all these things apply so that you're not confusing. You want to make sure that all ideas are presented in the correct order. We talked about that before when we said you have the different piles and you figure out logically what makes sense. They need to know this before this, right? You have to make sure there's a proper transition between every sentence and every paragraph. Read that document I sent you, the How to Write Copy So Compelling. It gives you examples. Read William Zinser's book, okay? You gotta practice being a good writer, being clear and having transitions. I'm an absolute Nazi about transitions. Next one, every sentence either meets the expectations set by the previous sentence or else clues the reader that you are going in a different direction. Remember before when I told one of you that you went from A to point D, but you didn't bother to tell the reader that you were going there, right? Here's something interesting. It is impossible to write a sentence that does not set up an expectation of what the previous sentence is. Let me give you some. If I say there are 3 reasons why people fail at losing weight, what do you expect the next thing to be? Somebody. Reason 1. Right.
3 reasons.
Right. What the reasons are. Very good. If I say some people think that stocks are better than real estate, what are you expecting the next sentence to be?
Why stocks are better than real estate?
The reason why? What might be another thing? Some people, but other people don't, right? Some people think stocks are better, but I think they're worse. The word but clues you in to what I'm doing. I'm going to say the opposite because I use the word but. So if some people say stocks are better, well, they're right. Or some people say stocks are better. The reason they say it, right? Either way, you're setting up an expectation and you either have to go with that expectation or tell me that you're going in another direction, right? And a lot of times people don't do that, and the reader is lost. They get disoriented and confused because you didn't bother to clue them in on where you were taking them. You know in your brain, but they can't read your mind, so you have to keep them with you, right? Each sentence presents only one idea or two at the most. Okay, remember, I forget whose copy it was where we had that law. I think it was, boy, I forget who it was, but the one about the multi-level marketing, the long ass sentences, right? Too much going on. Next one, no $10 words when a simple word would do, right? Don't use big words when there's a small word that's just as good. No needlessly changing subject between sentences within a paragraph. We talked about that a moment ago, the doer of the action. Don't change it up on them. You're going to confuse them. Keep it consistent so that they're moored, right? Next one, every time you use a pronoun like he, she, they, him, her, it, etc., it is absolutely clear who or what the pronoun is referring to. Next one, copy is below 8th grade reading level, preferably 6th grade or below, and you have that feature after the spell check in Microsoft Word that'll calculate that for you. Also, the Hemingway app, I think, does that. Copy speaks in actions and word pictures, not abstract concepts. And of course, as we said below, to translate abstractions into actions, ask, if I were watching a movie of this, what would I be seeing? So that's how you fix things that are confusing. What about if somebody puts a U for unbelievable? Well, number one, every claim has to be backed by proof. Claims that do not have proof should either be deleted or toned down. And again, you see chapter 3 of Victor Schwab's How to Write a Good Advertisement for a full list of the kinds of proof you can use. The next thing on the checklist, copy anticipates possible skepticism and objections, raises those objections and answers them. Remember, we talked about that in call number 1. The next one, copy contains no logical inconsistencies, okay? Don't fucking contradict yourself in your copy. I see it all the time and I don't understand why people do it. The other thing is, if you say stuff like, you know, Brian's the master bookseller, he's like magic, nobody can figure out how he does it, well then, you know, you just kind of contradict yourself later when you say it's going to be easy to do it. Because, no, these professional book scouts can't do it. Why would I be able to do it, right? You always have to think in terms of being consistent in your logic. Next one, copy avoids any facts or arguments that may potentially undermine the case being made, like what I just said, for example. So the litmus test, again, is you ask yourself, does this help my case, hurt my case, or is it neutral? And if it hurts your case or is it neutral, you take it out. So that's unbelievable. And then the final one is boring. How do we fix things that are boring? Number one, make sure ideas are presented in the correct order. Number two, make sure there's a proper transition between every sentence and every paragraph. Number three, the thing about the expectation. A lot of the things that make copy confusing are also make copy boring. So you fix all those things. Each sentence presents only one idea or two at the most. No $10 words when a simpler one will do. No needlessly changing subjects between sentences. Here's every time you use a pronoun, it's absolutely clear who's referring to. Keep going, Nicole. Scroll down to the next page. Copy speaks in actions and word pictures, not abstract concepts. This is one of the easiest and best and most effective ways to put use in your copy. Speak in word pictures. Ask yourself, if I were watching a movie of this, what would I be seeing? Next one, copy is below 8th grade reading level, preferably below 6th grade. You know, Donald Trump, he talks at 4th grade reading level, okay? Love him or hate him, he won the presidential election by speaking simply, while Hillary was speaking at like a 10th grade reading level. Next one, copy has less than 10% passive sentences. Again, you'll find out what the percentage is when you do the at the end of your spell check on Word, you'll do the reading e-score. Next one, copy avoids boring words and uses power words. So you get John Carlton's report, you get Clayton's report, you get whoever works. Look for boring words and change them into exciting words. One of the most boring words, by the way, is, right? Or having the subject of a sentence, we talked about this earlier, not be an animate object. So instead of saying, I love book sales, the person says, book sales can be exciting. Well, now you just made this abstract conceptual thing be the subject of your sentence. How the hell is somebody going to picture that? I guess you could picture a book sale, but you know, in general, like gerunds, you know what a gerund is? It's a word ending in ing that would normally be a verb, but you use it as a subject. So if you say, reading is a great way to become better at stuff. Well, why not say you can become better at stuff by reading? Isn't that more exciting when you have you be the doer of the sentence? Okay, the final one, there is nothing extraneous. Every single word and every phrase earns its way on the page. Again, does it help my case, hurt my case, or is it neutral? And if it doesn't help your case, then cut it out. So use this checklist always, 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 and you'll become a better writer. Any final questions? Do we have any final questions, Melanie?
The queue's empty currently. Judy says, truly awesome checklist. Thank you.
You're very welcome. And thank you all for being on the calls. Thank you for donating to my cousin. It's been a pleasure. I hope you got value from this. And Parris, saying goodbye.
Of course, I'm frozen and can't end the meeting.
Uh-oh.
Oh.
Ready? There you go, unfrozen.
You guys have a good weekend, Russell Reynolds and Pauline Longdon.
I will. Drew?
I found the end meeting. Bye.
Oh, there you go. See ya.
See you guys.